watching this, unlike the quantum eraser or the double slit experiment, will be at least reasonably familiar with the ideas behind the Big Bang. So where do we start? Who wants to kick off?
Nathan, hold on. Before you go, are you sure everything's recording? Because it's still waiting in my browser to go live. Oh, wait.
Really?
It's highly delayed.
Oh, no, you're right. It is. We've got a... Okay, talk to
I'm getting a notification now, but it's still not showing. It's still not playing.
Receiving your content. Your audience will see it in a moment. That's terrible.
Okay.
I've started the live stream and it's not started. Still says waiting for Nathan Oakley. Okay, so I'm going to go on mute for a second and see if I can figure out the problem. So talk amongst yourselves.
Oh, they're combing it with a tooth comb for improper words.
Wayne, Vane, or Wayne?
Wijn. Arwijn. 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 Wijn. Wijn. Wijn.
Yeah,
wijn.
I see the notification.
Arwijn.
It's weird.
Okay, you say it, John.
I can't. I don't have the capacity to do that. My mouth doesn't work.
Serious?
Yeah, I can't do that stuff, man.
Okay. Okay. The Dutch language officially.
Welcome to BALLBUSTERS Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Towards the end of the discussion, we will invite the public to join via the Discord link, which will also be in the info box below this video. Now, we are joined by Quantum Eraser, Arwin, Betty, and Paula. Very good to have you all.
Hello.
Good evening for the second time.
Ahoy, hoy.
Hello. If you're watching this on the re-up on Nathan Oakley, it's slightly confusing because all of the technical issues get recorded, so uncut versions are great for that. But this is now live. We are actually streaming, and today's amazing subject will be pretty much the antithesis of last week's conclusion to the delayed choice quantum eraser and double slit experiments, respectively. So we were talking in that respect to the creator, and in this instance we're going to be talking about the Big Bang. Now, unlike last week, I'm pretty sure most people watching this will be reasonably familiar with the concepts behind the Big Bang. So who wants to start us off from the panel?
Space, infinite space, incredible long ago, everything's so small, and then suddenly it all exploded in infinitesimally small amount of time, and then everything changed, and everything it kind of formed like the way it is. That's the Big Bang.
That's a really, really excellent summary of the Big Bang, Arwin. Thank you. Excellent.
We can stop now.
So informative, so full of information. So yeah, essentially everything from nothing, a singularity, right?
Yeah, something expanding in a big vacuum, which is already nothing, and it's expanding into something. Nice concept, but impossible, to my opinion.
Yeah, there will be a double speak warning that I'll give now. Lots of the things we say today may not make sense, but we are talking about the heliocentric model after all, so if there's double speak involved, you'll just have to bear with this. It will get explained if there is double speak along the journey.
Yeah, I can't help it. I just always kind of used to love the Big Bang storytelling time. It's just nostalgic. So I know it's nonsense now. It's like ghost stories, which usually tend to be complete fiction. But I still appreciate listening to like, oh, Big Bang Theory and how everything came to being. And ooh, it's a really nice story. So, yeah, that's where that's coming from.
I should give the audience a real spoiler alert. So if you're genuinely new to this channel, this is like the first video you've watched on this channel, this will be like a life spoiler. So this is definitely going to ruin a few movies, if not every movie that's based in space. So just be aware, in case you're not new to the channel and you're not prepared for what's going to get talked about. But we are in fact going to demolish the assertion that we have, or had, a Big Bang.
Yeah, that is so true. Now, because I used to like watching, one of my favorite movies is Aliens, the series of movies Aliens, and it's just not the same anymore. So that's a real thing.
Yeah, none of them are. Just before Flat Earth, I bought 2 6-terabyte hard drives and filled them with my DVD and Blu-ray collection. And I was like, rubbing my hands together, oh, this will keep me entertained forever. Find out the Earth is flat, find out the space is fake, and then it takes away the luster of like 60% of my movies. So it's like, oh, I'm not gonna watch that again. Like Alien's a great example. Ridley Scott, is it? It's set in space, set in the vacuum of space. It's set in the second law of thermodynamics violation that we debunk on a daily basis, right? How are you supposed to get your head around that? You're not going to suspend disbelief when you're talking about space to me anymore, unfortunately.
So guess what I watched last night? Star
Alien.
Trek: The Voyage Home.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
It is, right? Where they got the humpback whales and they
I love that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like it. It's one of my favorites.
Not set in space,
they go
though.
back in time, don't they?
It's set on Earth.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a really good movie. I enjoy it. Yep.
Paula, got any opening comments before we get into presentations and stuff?
Yeah, Stargate and Star Trek and Star Wars.
Oh, we got a lot of echo.
Movies? What movie? Sorry, I missed the last minute.
That's okay. Don't worry. What you got, Paula?
First thing I got to do is unmute.
I can hear you.
Big Bang expands into what?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say earlier, but I got stepped on. Right. What's it expanding into?
Right.
Precisely.
I mean, if that's the totality of the universe and it got bigger, it expanded into something bigger than itself. So, questions from the start.
And wouldn't it be basically expanding into a vacuum, or is there suggested to be a spatial confine that was
going to be my
literally
question.
Expanding?
Exactly. So if it's a vacuum, if the universe that we experience and we are in is an ever-increasing space that is a vacuum or near vacuum, well, what's that vacuum expanding into? It can't be a vacuum because it is a vacuum.
Yeah, the vacuum is supposed to be of space is supposed to be ever expanding into what? There has to be something it's expanding into.
Yeah, but hold on, that's the question always to me. Like, if it's expanding, so is the actual distance, the literal space volume, is that expanding, or is whatever the content is expanding? That's my question. And nobody ever asked it. I just asked it even 20 years ago. Because that seemed like logical. Like, okay, maybe the actual space realm itself would be expanding back then, assuming that it would be outer space, the galaxies and all that. And now, well, I'm thinking maybe the realm may be a little bit smaller than that. But yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, but mainly Paula's was a rhetorical question because it's idiotic, right?
Yeah, I'm not wondering. I'm going, that's impossible.
I thought she was sitting back there doing equations and she was going to come out with the answer.
I didn't think that.
Well, there's two ideas. Either the infinite expanding universe, space cosmos, is already infinitely large, or it is of a specific size expanding within infinite space vacuum, Or there is a limited spatial realm that is actually expanding with everything in it. Expanding with that,
you got to
just
be
like
careful.
the law of thermodynamics would make gas expand if the container would expand.
You got to be careful because there's 3 different Big Bangs.
3 different ones?
Yeah, there's 3 different Big Bangs. They never.
I think there are many theories. Really,
hold on.
If you
that's news to me as well. 3 Big Bangs? What now?
There are 3 different Big Bangs. They're based on. Yeah, they're based on K curvature, and there's 4 different black hole universes.
What?
Yeah, there's 4 different ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're not going to go into that here today, but just to let you know, 3 different Big Bangs and 4 different black hole universes, and each are mutually exclusive. Just to let you know.
Okay, just so it's not quizzed in the comments and I won't have an answer. So, is there a name for each of these Big Bangs? Let's not get into the black holes, just because we are specifically talking Big Bangs. Have they got names so that people can...
Yeah, it's based on K curvature. You got K1, K equal 1, K equal 0, and K equal -1. One's a flat space-time. And the other guys are I'd have to look them up again, but K1, K0, and K-1.
So black hole K1, black hole K0.
No, Big Bang. Those are Big Bang. K
Big
curvature,
bangs.
Big Bang. Yeah.
So Big Bang K1, Big Bang K0, Big Bang K-1 are the references for each different Big Bang. Right, this is new to me. Totally.
What?
Never heard of this before.
Yeah.
What? Are these some kind of interdimensional Big Bangs or something?
No, they're different spins on a similar concept. I think one's infinite and expanding, another one is static and finite.
Oh, right.
And
models. Presuppositional models. Yeah.
Yeah, they're different models. Yeah.
Right.
But they all have gravity in them.
Right, but there's still other components to them that I've never heard discussed, which are the things that I mentioned before. Like, there's more to it. But anyway, it's just me and my science fiction.
That's one way to look at it. There's either more to it that we just don't understand yet, Arwin, or it's all nonsense.
Or both.
It can't be both.
Yeah, it can. Well, nonsense can be more and can be very fascinating and captivating. And you can even learn things from it, just not relating directly to reality. Just like science fiction stories and fairy tales and
I've already learned one thing. There's 3 different models for this apparently, set in stone explanation for the beginning of time. But there we go. I didn't know that till now. So obviously this will be a journey of discovery, Arwin. Hopefully we will learn something.
Yeah, we're not going to go into 3 different types. I'm not going to get bogged down and chase begging the question fallacies. I ain't going to do it.
Yeah, you're going to go straight to the end and just kill it off at the roots.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun coming up here. Just wait.
Should we crack on with the presentation, John? Are you ready to rock and roll?
Well, you didn't have to wait too long. Yeah, go ahead.
Cool, I'll grab
tell me when the screen's up.
I need to grab the Discord link as well, don't I? Let's just do that first before I present you.
Okay, it's visible. Please.
Okay, right, we are ready to go.
Ready to go? You know what? I'm not going to start off on the Big Bang Theory. Take a sidebar here. We're going to start off with an incident that happened a couple weeks ago.
Wow, look at the globe.
Yeah, I brought this up. It was just off the cuff. I was screwing around one evening, listening to some nonsense when somebody brought up Soundly's Causeway Bridge. And I said, I got Google Pro here. Let me pull this up. Let me take a look at it. And since I lived down there in Louisiana for some time back in the day, it's got a special place in my heart. So I decided to pull it up and just mess around with it, right? And of course, that's the wrong one. So we're going to have to go back here. Now, no, that's the wrong one too. All right, things are working out good. There she is. So Lake Pontchartrain, right? So let's take a look at this. And this is what I did that night. I was just screwing around. I just came in there and I said, okay, there's some pretty significant curvature on that bridge I seen in his picture, right? So I said to myself, well, wait a second. If there's significant curvature here, then that means that there must be vertical drop, because in the spinning ball space monkey religion, every point along a tangent from your feet drops. That means vertical drop away from you at 8 inches per mile squared. So I said, okay, well, if it's dropping, then we should be able to see those elevation changes, correct? So I picked up Google Maps.
But what about terrestrial refraction?
We're not going to get into that. And so obviously, I'm not looking at the bridge here, folks. I'm looking at the shoreline, right? So I'm looking down here. I want to see the elevation of the shorelines. So it's 2 foot. You guys probably can't see this, but it's 2 foot, 1 foot, 3 foot. You get the idea along the shore here. So I said, okay, that's point B on the south side of the bridge. Let's roll up to the north side of the bridge and check this one out. And we get over to the shoreline over here, and it's the same type of thing, right? Now, I'm not doing the bridge, I'm doing the shoreline. So this is 1 foot, 2 foot, 4 foot, 3 foot. You get the idea. So I said, so I'm saying to myself, well, if they're supposed to be drop along this bridge, then why are both... you're going to have to go on mute, Arwen.
Hold on. I wanted to interrupt because there's seem to be a lot of connectivity problems. I'm seeing it and I'm hearing reflections of it in chat. Oh, wait. It seems to be restored. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, can you go on mute because I'm getting a lot of echo. So thanks. Back to the story, right? So if there's drop on the Earth, then there has to be an elevation drop. Drop means vertical drop, and it's part of their spinning space monkey religion. So, but each side of the shore is 3 feet above mean sea level. I mean, that's the reference point, right? So what are we talking about here? So, to the moral of the story, I was just going to let this go, right? It was just a one-off thing. I thought I'd bring it up. Everyone forgot about it. I got sick the next day and for the next few days after that. And all of a sudden, about 2 or 3 days after that, I started getting messages, laughing. They're all laughing. I mean, from people I've never heard from and from some of the bigwigs on the other side of the coin, right? They're laughing, ha, 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 you're an idiot. The usual ad hominem routine. And I'm sitting there, okay, I'm an idiot. Please tell me why. Right? And it went on for the whole week. No one was telling me why. And they still haven't told me, why am I an idiot here, people? Don't you know your religion?
They presuppose it. And then they wallow in their victory.
Do they think they live on a level curve? Do you guys know what level means? Level is flat. Let's go over this because I think we're going to have to go over it. All right. Let me put this down. Let's go over this real quick. Level equals flat. So from Merriam-Webster, level, to make a line or surface horizontal, make flat or level. All right? Synonyms for level: flat, flush, plane. Level, flat, plane, even, smooth, means having a surface without bends and curves or irregularities. You guys get this? It doesn't seem so. So let me define drop while we're here. Drop, to fall vertically, have an abrupt descent. From Oxford dictionaries, drop, letter make, fall vertically. Height, altitude, elevation mean vertical. You can't have horizontal drop, folks. So you see the connection yet? Fluoride mainliners out there?
Yeah, Google Earth is showing us a representation of a flat plane.
Yeah, that's what it's doing. So if there's a problem here, okay, no, I got your wrong model. Google seems to be flat earthers. So let's see the model with 8 inches per mile squared from a tangent from your feet that vertically drops away from you at 8 inches per mile squared. You guys must have forgot that part, right? So let's see it. Anything else on this? Oh, by the way, since you guys made a big deal out of this, did you ever hear of a poker tell? You know what tells are, right? So since you made a big deal out of this, I'm going to hammer on this for about the next 8 weeks, just to let you know. All right? Thanks for that, by the way. Priceless. All right, anything else on this one?
No. Arwen in the intro, or in the technical issues section of the show, shall we call it, was saying, you know, the Earth is flat, the Earth is flat, the Earth is flat. And it's like, well, yeah, and you can't get around that. You know, you're not going to be able to represent the world accurately as a ball if it's not a ball. And Google's no exception. That's why it presents it as flat. Because it is. Can we move on to the Big Bang?
Not just yet. I got one more issue.
Oh, okay, cool.
All right, just in case there's new people out there that just come stumbling into this, I'm going to give you a simple concept here. So,
the Earth is flat.
Thank you, Oak. Excellent timing as ever.
So, this is what they tell us that we live on, correct? So, I'm going to give you a little conceptual model here. Let's just, for example, say that you are in this position. You're looking at the sphere Earth, right? And in your possession, you have a camera that has unlimited zoom. And what you're going to do here, you're going to look over here to 9 o'clock. You like Hawaii, and you're going to zoom in on Hawaii. I mean, you're going to keep zooming in. You get this picture first, and then you're going to keep zooming and zooming and zooming into this 9 o'clock position. If you're a spinning ball-tarred space monkey, there is no way out of the fact that when you do that, you must see this. You must see this. You have to see this. There's no way around it, folks. You have to see this. I don't see any way around it.
What? Why? Explain.
Go back to the picture of the globe. Go back to the globe, John.
All right, 1 second.
So what would make your orientation organ make the world appear like this to you?
It's got to be sideways. It's got to be sideways if you're looking at Hawaii right here, at a little box right here. If you keep zooming in, you see how this is on its side?
But hold on, the supposed camera position is outside of the Earth, so it's kind of relatively directed.
No, listen to the beginning of the example.
You're in this position and you zoom in here. You're looking at your left eye too. Let's say it's like almost like binoculars. However, the camera is just in one eye, right? You're getting the picture here. You're zooming and zooming and zooming. There, you have to see the side view. These things have to be. You can't get around it. Are you following this? This is pretty. I thought this was pretty self-explanatory.
I don't know. Still, the camera is supposedly a viewer outside of Earth, so it's orientation.
That doesn't matter.
It's relative.
No.
But the orientation of the camera should be.
You're misunderstanding the example, Arwen. When he waves his mouse, he's not saying he's in space. He's saying he's on the land.
I don't get it.
You don't get this.
That's okay. That's fine. That means it needs explaining again. It's one of those things, Arwen, where we're so brainwashed into just accepting that what we actually see should be how it would work on a sphere, that when you actually start to go back and with a now fresh slate going, well, no, what we actually observe is a flat plane, and then you go back to the concept of a sphere, you look at it and go, well, it would have to present itself as a sphere. So the obvious stuff that we argue about, like it's worthy of arguing about, 8 inches per mile drop, seeing stuff on the side of a sphere, antipodal people hanging off it.
I get that, the presuppositional world, but that's just a way of thinking, and I can get in and out of that as I please. I know the difference.
Yeah, a way of thinking. That's the point John's making, though. In physical reality, you can't get around the fact that it's on the side of a sphere. If it is on the side of a sphere. In physical reality,
that image can never be. It's very simple.
Yeah, you're right. That's the point.
That's the point.
That's the point. Excellent.
Right, but if you're going to presuppose that it is real, then yeah, you're going to deal with certain parameters.
Yeah, you can imagine it. That's okay. There's lots of people with the belief in it, believe it or not, Owen. I know it's not been more than 3 or 4 years for both of us, but believe me, there's lots of people who still think that's true. Actually reality, as opposed to a concept we can just believe in. We all know we can believe in it, and we can even conceptualize it, as you were just describing, that you can conceptualize it in that manner and make it somehow work through cognitive dissonance, holding two different things that oppose each other. The world does present itself as flat, and you're never going to see sideways helicopter or upside down man hanging off Earth. That's never going to be photographed, ever.
I call it basically the foundation of science fiction.
It is.
That's
exactly what it is.
Correct.
Yeah, that's why it ruins all of your movies, because they're rooted in actual fact. So when they're showing you, yeah, you've obviously got to suspend disbelief because you're not on Starship Enterprise, but at a base level, you're suspending disbelief on the premise that it is actually at some stage potentially possible for the Starship Enterprise to enter a second law of thermodynamics violation and fly through the vacuum of the sky.
But hold on, there's more to those series and those movies than just that.
All right, we're getting off topic.
No, I want to make this point.
We're getting off topic.
Yeah, I know. I'll keep it short. I promise.
Real short.
Please, John. Short. Okay, so it's basically just another storytelling medium. So the things that happen in it, usually metaphor things that reflect upon history and real life personal experiences. And so technically it can happen, just not in that specific form presupposed in the series.
I understand. What you're saying is, and this is relevant, John, to be fair to him now, he said it, it's predictive programming. So a lot of the concepts that are Einsteinian and, in this case, the Big Bang, are going to be part and parcel of the science fiction to predictively program you and keep you in the paradigm of heliocentrism. So yeah, you're right, it was a worthy point, but fair enough. We do want to stay on topic, though. Hopefully there won't be any interruptions during the actual presentation, which starts about now.
Yeah, yes. It's going to start right now.
Right, no interruptions now, Arwin.
I will not interrupt.
Thank you.
Are we ready?
We are ready. Arwin's on mute. We've had the conversation. We're all good.
All right, the Big Bang theory, right? That's what they call it, a theory. They just slap that word on the end of it. Gives it some veracity in their minds, I guess. So, in 1927, the father of modern cosmology, Georges Henry Joseph Edouard Lemaitre, Jesuit and Catholic priest, this is priceless, conjured what we now know as the Big Bang. He termed it this back in the day. Hypothesis of the primeval atom, right? That's what it was first called. Let's take a look at this guy. I want to show these atheistic baltards who their Monsignor is. And what we have here is Weird Al over to the right. And here's your father, Monsignor Georges Lemaitre, right? And we have an elderly 2 Utes, Joe Pesci. Nah, I'm just kidding. I think this is Robert Millikan, if I'm not mistaken, but he's not the point. This is your father, folks. The father of modern cosmology from UC Louvain Research Institute in Mathematics and Physics. Let's take a look at this down here. Let's see what they got to say. So, those who had the privilege to closely know Monsignor Georges Lemaitre have surely been struck by the strong personality of the father of modern cosmology. Make no mistake, folks. So these guys who rail against religion, the atheists, they have a father of their modern cosmology. And let me tell you something, folks. You can't get any more religious than the Roman Catholic Church. Just to let you know. Let's move on out of there. It's priceless. So, distinguished astrophysicist Fred Hoyle, back in the day, atheist from Cambridge, during a 1949 BBC radio broadcast, coined the phrase Big Bang. It was clearly pejorative and derisive, as Fred was a proponent of the steady state theory, along with Einstein, by the way. You see, atheists didn't much care for this hypothesis of the primeval atom because it hinted at a creator. And it was highly contentious over the next 20 years. You never hear anything about that, right? So what is the Big Bang Theory? Well, let's go to the universetoday.com. The basics of the Big Bang Theory are fairly simple. In short, the Big Bang hypothesis. Oh, wait a second. I thought this was a theory. Do they know the difference between a theory and a hypothesis? I want to see this Big Bang hypothesis, or I suppose this is it. So let me continue. In short, the Big Bang hypothesis states that all of the current and past matter. I can't get through this. What is all of the current and past matter? What do they mean by that? All the current and past matter in the universe came into existence at the same time. It just come into existence. Roughly 13.8 billion years ago. At this time, all matter was compacted into a very small ball with infinite density and intense heat called the singularity, right? Got some big problems in this. Number one, came into existence, eh? Pray tell, what, where, and how? Then please explain how this doesn't violate the first law of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics, please. I need a detailed explanation of this. Number two, whoa there, Coach Chase. Infinite density? Yeah, more like infinite imagination. Let's go to physlake.com. The Big Bang singularity is a point of zero volume, but very high mass, which makes the density infinite. How can you have zero volume? Look at this equation. Look, volume can't be zero in this equation right here. Why?
Why not?
Every primary school student knows that the denominator can't be zero. It's undefined.
Why?
You need to turn off your mic. I'm getting bad echoes.
I'm really sorry, but I'm kind of curious, kind of stupid though. But why? Why can't it be zero? Can you explain that very quickly?
Sure. It's undefined. You can't divide by zero.
No, but
that's my explanation.
No, but that's mathematical. But in
this is mathematical. Density equals mass over volume. This is mathematical. You can't have the denominator be zero. It's undefined, is what it's
called.
You're
saying that technically volume is impossible to exist.
If you have zero volume, Arwin, you can't have anything in it. If you don't have anything, i.e. zero volume, how can it have anything in it?
Not a volume.
No
so,
longer
like
a volume.
I said, can we continue?
Yeah, hopefully so. You're cool with that. It's fair enough. Hopefully, there's specific gaps, Arwin. I know this is the first show you've been on, but just FYI, John will stop and maybe grab a pen, take some notes, but just otherwise it'll take 3 hours.
No, I am taking notes, but I just... Look, John is doing a lot of presentations, but these questions do keep on lingering. So these math systems are derived from the physical real thing, right? It's a derivative. Math is a derivative. So I'm wondering, can this in the reality, can it be zero?
No.
Because in math, that gives an error, of course. But in reality, that's my question.
No, you can't have zero volume. Zero volume means you've got nothing to put anything in.
Right.
So let's move on. Just, like I say, grab a pen, write down any questions. There will be gaps to ask questions.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Every primary school student knows that you can't divide by frigging zero. So now we not only can divide by zero, but when we do, the answer equals infinity. Preposterous, folks. I mean, this is... let's move on. Scientifically validate 13.8 billion years. So, I need to see this. You can't even get inside the first step of the scientific method, observe a natural phenomenon, without a time machine. So this is a joke. This is just mere declaration. Like I said, it'd be easier resurrecting Alexander the Great horse than answering A, B, or C, or D. Number 4, you can't have zero volume and also have heat. That is kinetic energy, vibrating molecules, clowns.
That makes sense.
So that's the end of the first one right there. We'll get into space.com's definition. Let me stop right there.
Okay, right. Arwin, feel free to go first. I know you've got questions.
Right. Well, I wanted to go into the mathematical principles again for dividing by zero. if you divide something by 0, what it technically happens is something becomes infinitely big, right?
That's what they're saying,
But
yeah.
if you divide 0 by something, then it becomes infinitely small. It's a difference in the type of error.
Well, you can't divide by 0.
No, but that's there's a difference in the type of problem that results.
Well, they've got around that problem by saying when you divide by 0, you create everything that ever existed ever. That's what they're saying.
Well,
Wow.
that's their derived conclusion, basically, but it's still the technical principle.
Yeah, but it,
I like
One
to have a
divided
0
by
on my
0
bank account.
1 divided by 0 is infinitely large. 0 divided by 1 is infinitely small. Basically, that's what it comes down to. It's technical. It's a mathematical principle. One of the principles that I did actually remember from math.
Yeah, nonsense.
in reality, though, nonsense.
Technical.
In maths, they have defined it that way. You are right, Arwin. It is, however, nonsense because you can't divide by 0. You especially
That's why
can't divide by it and
not-
get infinite. You know,
Well,
that's
they
nonsense.
did actually find a technical solution even to the square root of -1. Weirdly enough, I always had like, why?
Okay, we're off on a hold on. We're off on a tangent now, and I know Paula's just piped up, or was it Betty?
All right, I'll shut up.
Yeah. Well, math is not reality, so and if you can have infinitely more, if you have 0, then they can divide 0 on my bank account, and maybe I have 0 multiple more on my bank account. Then it's nonsense, right? This whole 0 thing. So nothing can come out of nothing. That's the only thing that comes out of nothing. It's nonsense.
Yeah, my older son excelled at math at university level, and one of the things he said was his professor demonstrated that if you break the rules, such as dividing by 0, you can prove mathematically that the professor down the hall is a carrot. So the point being that math will tell you anything you want to know if you just don't have no regard for any kind of rules. And the thing about Big Bang is that we're just supposed to be describing reality, which math never has to do unless you hold it to its rules. And even then, it may or may not describe reality. But the point being that if there is no mass doesn't have anything to do with this at this point. If there is no mass, there is no mass. You can't have infinite anything in nothing. And this is just a philosophical shell game that they're playing.
But I would like to respond to that, because that, of course, refers to that singular point from which the Big Bang erupted. But what if all, which it would have to be, mass, giant mass of the entire universe, supposedly, what if that simply, because of its concentration, was kind of, because of the near infinite gravity, as it were, that would probably come from that concentration of mass? What if it was just outside of normal space? So it would be there, it would just not comply to the normal rules of time, space, normal reality.
That's like playing a joker in the middle of a game, and just saying,
I couldn't help it.
I know it's a Deus Ex Machina again. That Ghost in the Machine. This is my magic thing that I whip out just when I'm everything is lost, and I'm going to make a new reality all of a sudden that solves all my problems. I mean, are we talking about truth and reality, in fact, or are we talking about endless, mind exercises and things we can imagine? That's
but now I know.
Well, it is kind of the foundation of scientism. It's
now I know why Arwin
being
wouldn't agree
able
with
to extend further and find a new solution to that thing you couldn't solve before. That's really what it is. What it has been for decades.
But now I know why you wouldn't agree with dividing by 0, or you put that little spanner in the work. It's because you needed to once remove it in order to have your infinite stuff in a very small space, which is the next step. In other words, you've got to start with dividing by 0. What you've done in your example is go on to the next step where you've got a huge amount of stuff in a very, very small amount of space, well, at least you're not dividing by zero, which is where we started, right, Arwin? You just threw a bit of a spanner in the works at that stage.
Well, maybe it would be so much in so little space that literally space itself would just start to bend, and it would be not in the normal definition of space as we know it.
See, folks, he
Because
did it again.
So concentrated.
Did it again. He did it again.
It would
Sneaky little
warp
sod.
reality itself.
Sneaky little sod. So you did it again.
Time and space itself.
Yeah, you've started with your explanation with it being in very little space and what would happen in that very tiny space and how, you know, I'm sure you threw gravity in there as well. But
of course,
you've sidestepped the beginning and end of this argument.
Gravity.
You've sidestepped the beginning and end of this argument. You threw a little spanner in when John got very annoyed with you, rightly so. But you can't divide by zero, Owen. You can't get infinitely a lot of stuff into a very tiny space if you haven't started by dividing by zero and coming up with everything from that.
I agree, but you can get a near or a seemingly infinite amount into a seemingly infinitely small amount of space.
Seemingly infinitely small is
but
still a very, very tiny space, though, isn't it? As opposed to dividing by zero and getting everything, which is where we start. That's the beginning and end of this, really.
Yes, absolutely agree. There cannot be the infinity factor in a literal sense cannot be present. Technically impossible. I agree.
Thank God he finally gets there. Hopefully that's lowered John's blood pressure. Betty and Paula, have you got anything to add? If not, we'll move on.
No, I think that we have to move on. Yeah.
Paula?
No, I'm good.
In your own time, John?
From space.com. The Big Bang Theory, now we're up to a theory, it was a hypothesis before, is the leading explanation. Oh, they're really getting tricky. This is Trixie's leading explanation about how the universe began. At its simplest, it talks about the universe as we know it, starting with a small singularity, then inflating over the next 13.8 billion years to the cosmos that we know today. That's special. Leading explanation. What do they got? It's like a horse race. Everyone puts their explanations on the track and they see which one's going to win. Clowns. From the University of Rochester Physics Lab, common mistakes in applying the scientific method. The most fundamental error is to make the mistake the hypothesis for an explanation of a phenomena without performing experimental tests. See, these guys even mistake the hypothesis for the explanation, right? These people up here don't even have a hypothesis. They just got an explanation, aka just so story. So all they have is the just so story. Where's the hypothesis? Where's the experiment? I mean, this is science, right?
It's all presupposed.
So number 2, starting with a small singularity. Where'd you get the singularity? As in, get your own dirt. And we want to know where you got this from. And one of my favorites, I really like this one, inflation. So, Paul Steinhardt, the father of inflation theory, right? This is what he has to say of his own creation. Since 1983, it has become clear that inflation is very flexible. Parameters can be adjusted to give any result, and generically leads to a multiverse consisting of patches in which any outcome is possible. Imagine a scientific theory that was designed to explain and predict, but ends up allowing literally any conceivable possibility without any rule about what is more likely. What good is it? It rules out nothing and can never be put to a real test. Okay. You see, scientific theories are the result of tests. So this one can't even be put to a real test. How can you have a scientific theory then? To be a scientific theory, it already has to be validated tests. This one can't even put to a real test. So how is it a scientific theory? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, from BigBangTheory.com, they even have a website of their own. According to the standard theory, our universe sprang into existence as a singularity about 13.7 billion years ago, right? They're going to have to take it easy on the technical white paper terminology here. They're going to have to break this down for us laymen. Clowns. And again, from the Big Bang Theory, here they're going to get detailed on us. Hold on to your hats. The singularity didn't appear in space. Rather, space began inside of the singularity. Prior to the singularity, nothing existed. Not space, time, matter, or energy, nothing. So where and in what did the singularity appear, if not in space? We don't know. So, number one, so nothing existed, then the singularity appeared. That's a really good story right there. Please explain in the first law of thermodynamics and then quantum mechanics context, por favor. And of course, we got the famous appeal to ignorance fallacy. We don't know. Let's stop right there.
Right, don't mind if I go first. So that all sounds very familiar. So this little magic trick of calling a just so story a hypothesis, this magic word, this hijacking of a scientific piece of terminology to employ a magic trick and basically make up a story and say it's a hypothesis, and suddenly it all sounds very scientific. How familiar is that?
Oh, the cover of Science, the white coat, and the glasses and the pen in the pocket.
We must start modifying our language. Whenever we describe this, it is by definition pseudoscience. So, hopefully he doesn't hate me for doing this, but Jaren often makes this mistake, and I'm sorry for criticising you on it, it's just the way it is. But Jaren will say, this is the fault of science, or science says, or the men of science have told us that. Well, no, none of that's true. It's the men of pseudoscience. Pseudoscience says, because number one, science doesn't say anything, it's a method, and two, say it says something is a reification. It doesn't say anything, it's just a method. But they're not science. These people are pseudoscience. And science, which is real and does prove things, shouldn't be decried when it's not science that's doing this. Not that science can do things, it's a method. But there we go. Paula, did you want to go second? No, Owen, you've had a...
Me.
Yeah, I'll leave it till last time.
All right. Sorry,
ladies
Paula.
first, Owen. I'll let you go first because you had so much to interrupt with last time, but if you can go last this time, that'd be great.
Whee! I was just going to say falsification is how you can tell if it's the simplest way to just refer to whether something is a scientific idea or whatever term they want to use. If you can't falsify it, it's not scientific. So there must be a way to falsify it, and I don't see any way to falsify the Big Bang. For one thing, it's a one-off past event, and for another, no one was there to observe it even then. So if all they have is math, and that's really all they have in the end, then it's not scientific because it's not falsifiable. That's really all point I would make right now.
Betty?
Yeah, it sprang into existence, and I think nothing will spring into existence. I've never seen things doing things on its own. You have to have intelligent design. You have to know. You have to have intent, and I don't know where that's put in there in this theory. Who did what to make it spring into existence? That's my thing with it.
Well, John did speak to this. Maybe you can reply to that, John, because you hinted at it earlier, and I was going to leave it till right at the end actually, but now Betty's brought it up.
Sorry.
Right at the no, it's good. Right at the start, you said this annoyed the atheists because it pointed at, and the word you used was a creator, and I was going to ask you maybe towards the end. Well, is it pointing towards a creator or just creation? And I know where that ends. That's a leading question before you pick me up on it. So I don't know if you want to address that now or if it's part of the presentation later, but hopefully you know where I'm going.
Yeah, well, creation immediately implicates a creator, right? You can't have creation without a creator.
I knew you'd pick on the side subject. Why would it annoy the atheists? Why would it annoy the atheists?
Who's moaning?
That's me.
Arwin, I will come to you. Just try and keep on mute. We'll get to you, I promise.
Yeah, try that mute button. Because I'm getting a lot of echo.
Okay.
That's not me.
Let's not.
Well, I want to see the echo. Go ahead and put your mute
no, let's
button
not
on.
turn this
It'll be
into
the
an
first time
admin
I've ever
session.
seen it.
It's all right. It's all good. So why would the atheists get annoyed at this?
Yeah, but as soon as Abby Georges Lemaitre postulated this, he didn't speak directly towards a creator. It hinted at one, right? Because you can't have something come from nothing. So something had to cause the effect of the singularity, whatever that was, or whatever he called it at that time. It's just simple. It's just simple logic. I mean, fog of mirror people can pick up on it real quick.
Sure, but I just don't want the point to get lost and diluted in this massive information. Yes, you're right. It is simple stuff, but it's worth pointing out. Arwin, go ahead.
Yeah. Right. So what I wanted to say at first was, scientism. Science, the science consensus, what is popular science? It is a cult. It is a grassroots nerd based, basically people that are above average intelligence, that just have intelligence to apply to stuff. They want to use it. And they are part of this cult that just presupposes and calculates and applies their intelligence a lot. It's very gratifying to them because they have a lot of things to work on to apply their intelligence. It's very convenient. And it serves its function at that, to keep them busy, to keep them trained. And that's the thing about it. That's why it's popular. That's why it's there. But it is a cult, technically. It is a cult of a fantasy-based presuppositional calculus cult. And it has thrived. It has thrived in the West. Yes. And it's become kind of necessary as just to keep the intelligent people busy, to keep them busy. That's really why it's there. Because there's so many things you can do with it and so much involved, and then there are the abusers, of course, the people that abuse it, that try to make money with it. NASA, you know how it goes.
Does this tangent have an ending, Arwin?
Yes.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, every time you pause and I think, all right, that's my start point to bring us back on track. Right, pseudoscience. My point being that, you're calling it a cult now and you're calling it all this stuff. Yeah, it's pseudoscience. The problem being it's referred to as science when it isn't. You know, you're right, though, Owen, just to agree with you, so it's a bit less confrontational, a bit more light-hearted. Right, yeah. There is always another...
Sorry for being long-winded.
It's okay, no, it's fine. Just try not to close the gates by interrupting or opening your mute while someone's presenting. Anyway, Owen, so yes, there's always another just so story to be told by a pseudo-scientist claiming to be a scientist. You're right. Any more from anybody else, or should we move on? Right, moving on. John, ready when you are.
Well, obviously, folks, the Big Bang is not an actual scientific theory, right? You see, the pseudoscience priests, merely repeat their conjurings a few 100,000 times over multiple decades into the waiting ears of their incoherent hordes, then sit back and laugh. Why? Well, they know that their target audience wouldn't know what the difference between actual science and a chartreuse windsock. They also know you will not only believe it, you'll mindlessly parrot it. Right? I'll show you. Define the Big Bang. That's the first one I want to hear. They tried to up above. Okay, they defined it. It wasn't coherent, but hey, at least I'll give them that. We'll take their definition. But you are not answering B, C, D, E, and F. It's just not going to happen, right? So this isn't science. We're just playing. It's like a cat or King Kong playing Little Miss Muffet. This is a joke, folks. I hope you see that by now. Even more moronic, if that were even possible, they have brain-dead atheists parroting what they gnash their teeth and rail against. Religion, right? Remember, the conjurer of the Big Bang Theory was Abby Georges Lemaitre, a dead Jesuit and Catholic priest. It's tantamount to Jedi mind tricking PETA nudists into advertising and backing fur traders. Just hypocritical pretender clowns spinning space monkey muppets. That's it. That's all we got here, folks. This is really good. You're going to love this. Also, we have Georges Lemaitre, Monsignor, our Jesuit Catholic priest, who was the first to derive Hubble's law. That's redshift, published 2 years before Edwin Hubble. You want to know why they call the priest the father of modern cosmology? Here you go. This is why. Because of the Big Bang and redshift. There's your boy. They call this, it's officially known as the Hubble-Lemaitre law. How did Hubble get his name in here?
Is it really a law? Based on what?
Not a natural law.
Ridiculous.
This is what they call it, the Hubble-Lemaitre law. How did Hubble squeeze in here? I don't know. Maybe I can get in on the action here. It was 2 years before. Maybe we can go for 85 years after. I could put something in there. We can have the quantum eraser Hubble-Lemaitre law. Clowns. Oh, and by the way, see my personal demolition of all this CMB and redshift fiasco nonsense here. It's in Cathexis's channel.
Hey, can you post it? Can you post it in the side chat, and I'll grab it and put it in for the public chat?
Yeah, maybe afterwards. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna stop. Yeah, I'm gonna stop here. We're gonna get into another section. So, what do you guys have to think about all this?
Bessie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, it's what John said. It's religion. It's belief without evidence. You can't prove this. So it's basically a cult, and we all were in it at some point. I think. I know that when I was taught this in the beginning, I thought, okay, so how did these people know this? How did they come about this? But when you are a kid at school, you learn this and think nothing of it anymore, because you have to go through school, through the motions, and
right.
Later on you think, oh my God, what did I ever think about this? Why did they get along with this?
Well, it's also being reinforced by TV, by the way. So
yeah,
it's definitely, since the television has been introduced in the Western society, it's noticeably immediately it popped up. The trickery, immediately, the globe trickery immediately popped up during the television age. So it was definitely a part of the globe indoctrination, the television age.
Yeah, the science fiction with Star Trek and yeah, that did help to keep it alive longer, I think. Yeah. So that's what I think. I think it's
not just
ridiculous.
Keeping it alive, ingrain it in the way of thinking of the common people.
Yeah, so that you not go back to the origins of it and see that it's BS, right? That's it.
Well, it gives you a foundation, and then whenever they create something that is involved with that kind of way of thinking, then it just touches upon what you know. So it's like a game, and you just get compelled to be part of the game, to follow it. You're curious, like what's the next development? See, that's the science game. What's the next development? What's new?
Yeah.
What are they gonna say next?
Yeah, that's true.
Paula, any comment?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll get ahead of what John is going to say anything about Hubble himself and his motivations, but are you going to do that, John, or not? Or I'll just say something quick if you're not.
No, I'm done with him for now.
Okay, yeah, he did not like the idea of a Big Bang and of the fact that redshift seemed to make the Earth the center of everything, because everything seemed to be going away from the Earth, at least at the time. And he didn't want that because he wanted at all costs to stay away from any beginning or centrality of Earth because of the Christian God concept, essentially. So they were all very highly motivated to look for something, anything to grasp at that would get them away from special creation. and design. They wanted it to be a chaotic mess. Never mind that, the old illustration that if you put a bunch of dynamite under a junkyard that you'll get a 747. That's essentially what the Big Bang Theory teaches, order from chaos, when everything we observe in nature is going from order to chaos. And that's why they have to invoke fake universes or alternate universes, or the laws of physics didn't apply in a place and time where nobody can examine them. And that's basically, again, playing, having an ace up your sleeve to override any rational scientific method. And that's what they, of all people, are against, a rational scientific method consistently applied. So they have to come up with these stories, and they'll use their esoteric language of physics and math to do it, because it's beyond most people. And it's no different from the Gnostic idea of an elite group of gnosis and people who have been properly initiated into the cult. And so it's really technically no different at all from that.
Gnosis as in the knowers.
Yes.
The true knowers
Gnosis.
of the knowledge.
Yep.
Did you like John's sandcastle example last week, Paula?
Right, exactly.
So yeah, last week on BALLBUSTERS, John had a picture of the sand dunes and then a picture of a sandcastle, and essentially they're saying, yeah, this sandcastle can just magic itself into existence. You used an example of a jumbo jet or something from an explosion with TNT,
Right.
just as good.
Right, they have to break their laws. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the important point, there's many points along with this, but the important point was, or one of them, is how ironic this is, because what do atheists rail against? Religion, right? Who's the father of their modern cosmology?
Priest.
Abbé Georges Lemaitre, a Catholic priest. So they're PETA nudist fur traders, is what they are. They don't realize it, which is hilarious.
Any more, or should we move on? Looking at you, Arwin.
No questions.
Cool. Let's move on.
All right, we ready?
Yeah, you're up.
So, this is what you get when you bring all these points up against the Big Bang, right? You're always going to get this. Just let me tell you. But the Big Bang was predicted, right? That is what you're going to hear. And what did they use to grease the skids for their little Mystic Meg prediction? Obviously, the cosmic microwave background radiation, right? You guys know that. You guys been on the show before.
Hold on.
Oh, here we go.
How can somebody predict a Big Bang? Because that means predict means that knowing it is going to happen. So how can somebody predict a Big Bang? You'd have to be there before the Big Bang. That's a contradiction in terms, even within the sentence.
Exactly. You're right. But we're going to get into some specifics here that's tear-jerking belly laugher. Where do you see this? All right, we ready? I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so the year, I want you to focus on, don't lose sight of this year, 1948. This is a very important year right here. 11 papers were submitted, mainly by 3 players. We had George Gamow and his students, Ralph Alpher and Robert Herman. It was now termed the Hut Big Bang. That's what we're going to see in the literature. The predictions, though, were of what was already known to exist. This is hilarious. The theorists in 1948 were merely conforming the model to data already collected from 1937 to 1941, right? I call them the Three Musketeers. They made additional predictions with the CMB temperature that ranged from 3 to 50 degrees Kelvin. But whenever we're in a jam, we just go to NASA, and they solve the problem for us. So, from NASA, the existence of the CMB radiation was first predicted by Ralph Alpher in 1948. Don't lose that date, folks, 1948. In connection with his research on the Big Bang nucleosynthesis undertaken together, like I said, with Robert Herman and George Gamow from above. So, again, predicted. What was the hypothesis? because a hypothesis is a scientific prediction. So I have yet to see in 12 years the CMB scientific hypothesis. So you're never going to see it. This is from the Nobel lecture from, if you know Robert Wilson and Arnos Penzias, who received the Nobel Prize for discovering the CMB. This is from Robert Wilson's Nobel lecture. Listen closely. The first confirmation of the microwave cosmic background that we knew of, however, came from a totally different indirect measurement. This measurement had in fact been made 30 years earlier by Adams and Dunnan. We're going to get to that here in a second. Adams and Dunnan had discovered several faint optical interstellar absorption lines, which were later identified with the molecules CH, CH plus, and CN. In the case of CN, in addition to the ground state, absorption was seen from the first rotationally excited state. McKellar 22 used Adams' data on the population of these two states, calculated that the excitation temperature of the CN was 2.3 Kelvin. What is the current temperature of the cosmic microwave background radiation? Well, it's 2.3 Kelvin. He was talking about these guys. Adams and Dunnan in 1937 found absorption lines which were later identified with interstellar molecules CH and CH plus and CN. That's the one he was talking about, and this one. In 1940, so remember our date we had to remember up there, it's down here too, 1948, right? In 1940, Canadian astrophysicist and spectroscopist Andrew McKellar calculated that the CN molecules were in thermal equilibrium with a temperature of about what? 2.3 Kelvin. That's the cosmic microwave background temperature. What date was this? When was this? It was in 1940, but it wasn't published till 1941. So I hopefully everyone can see this. So we already had measurements showing up in the literature 8 years before 1948, making the Mystic Med prediction a post-diction. That's a simple one right there. I mean, this is over. Moreover, at the same time, let's go back to Robert Wilson. At the same time, some radio astronomers thought that the microwave absorption of the Earth's atmosphere was about twice the value we were using. In other words, the sky temperatures of figures 6 and 8 was about 5K instead of 2.5K or 2.5K. That's a whole universe of error. We knew from our measurement of the sky temperature shown in figure 7 that this could not be the case. So really, how'd they know that? See my personal demolition of the CMB and the redshift fiasco, and I put that link in the side chat for you, Nathan. At 5K, that's a full universe worth of error in the prediction. This is tantamount to predicting that the Seattle Seahawks will score between 0 and 1,000 points in their next game and claiming confirmation of the prediction when they score 28. That's how ridiculous this is. Let's just say what needs to be said. I love this. This is from Mitchell William from Physics Essays, peer-reviewed journal. History also shows that some Big Bang cosmologists' predictions of the microwave background radiation temperature have been adjusted after the fact to agree with observed temperatures. So he's just busted them. We already have the background information that busted them. They even come out and say you're busted. But no, we'll just whistle past the graveyard past it. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here, folks. Just keep on going. It's the prediction. Clowns. All right, let's stop right there.
Okay, if I can go first. You started off highlighted in blue. It said measurement.
Uh-huh.
Then it didn't seem to get mentioned any further. It just kept on saying calculated, calculated, calculated. What was the measurement?
Yeah, this measurement had in fact been made 30 years earlier. The measurement that was the calculation with these guys, CH plus and CN.
You said the measurement that is the calculation. I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, they calculated thermal equilibrium at 2.3 K. This is some serious complicated, would have to go through the CMB presentation for that. This goes into a deep discussion.
Sure, but what was actually measured? There you go. That's my question.
There was an indirect.
Interstellar molecules? Was that measured?
This came from a totally different. It was an indirect measurement. In fact, he classified or categorized it here.
I'm still confused.
It was.
Yeah,
me too.
What's been indirectly measured?
Is
the
that
temperature.
The interstellar molecules of what are these interstellar molecules, by the way? I thought it was a vacuum.
I just want to rephrase my question. Okay, so is there an interstellar thermometer?
yeah, there is.
Okay.
Yep, of course there is. 2.3K. Yep.
That's a number.
And how did they do that then?
Hold on, sorry. That's not a thermometer, John. I'm sorry to be saying this to you, but yes. Sorry to point out the obvious. That is a number.
Yeah, it's 2.3 Kelvin. Yep, it's a temperature. Definitely. They calculated it, and they called it a measurement.
Okay, that's what I was waiting for. So they called it a measurement. Okay, now we're all clear. Right, we'll start with Arwin. Go ahead, Arwin, if you've got any questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, that's technically
sorry, he's still in the middle of the presentation.
Oh, God.
Sorry, are you still in the middle of it, John?
The Earth is flat.
Yeah, carry on if you're still in the middle. I thought that was a break, sorry.
No, that's a break.
Hey, yeah, Arwin, if you've got any questions, go ahead. Betty, if you've got any questions, feel free.
Yeah, I've still got the question about the interstellar molecules. I mean, interstellar molecules, I thought it was a vacuum. What are these interstellar molecules?
Even in their story, it's not a perfect vacuum.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what their interstellar molecules are.
Yeah.
Well,
and then you can measure these things and come to a conclusion.
Yeah, if you go back to my CMB presentation I did on context, I explain all this.
Yeah, you have the picture also on there, I think. Wasn't it?
Oh, that might be worthwhile. Maybe people don't know what the CMB actually is. So, I don't know if you've got a picture. We're all presumably familiar with this anyway, but there might... In fact, I'm almost certain there's going to be people that don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, everyone's heard of this cosmic microwave background radiation. Unless, you just come out of the closet.
Okay, fine. We'll just...
So you're not going to look it up then?
No, that's fine. Towards the end, we'll show a picture. Not in the middle of a presentation, but yeah, towards the end. Sorry, carry on, Betty. I completely hijacked your point there.
No, I think that I made it already, and John answered it already. It's not a perfect vacuum, so. But then again, you have problems measuring these molecules. I think if you have, because we have to be in that vacuum, right? So I don't think that we can get there. But that's my opinion.
I think what I could do to resolve that, if I was the arbiter of heliocentrism, which I'm not. All I would do is I would probably adjust the Tor values between here on Earth and the edge of the CMB. There you go, I almost said that with a straight face.
Well, the edge of up until the point where they could actually measure it.
No, I'll just change the numbers.
Because to be fair, after a certain point, they will have probably speculated what the pressure would be based on the data already available.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'll just change the numbers. I'll just rearrange the Tor values. I think something similar happened recently, but maybe we'll get into that later. Paula, did you have anything to add?
I was just sitting here thinking how similar measuring these molecules, interstellar molecules, is to the idea of measuring the thermosphere, because supposedly it's extremely hot, but there's so little of anything to get hot that it doesn't matter. Then how do they measure the temperature on such a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of whatever space, especially when you're talking interstellar? They would have to have instruments, interstellar locations, and these instruments would have to be so wide-ranging and sensitive that they could pick up 1 in a gazillion molecules to measure. And how often they'd measure it, you need a lot of measurements to get an average temperature. So this is just smoke and mirrors as far as I'm concerned.
I'm pretty sure we covered this.
We're 10 steps down of begging the question fallacy, just to let you know.
Well, yeah, but this, nonetheless, Paula, this did get covered. They've got the giant 2.3 which is an interstellar thermometer. So there you go. There's the answer.
Yeah,
that's what I got.
There it is.
That's your thermometer right there. Giant 2.3, apparently.
I'm
led
convinced.
to believe. Any more, Arwin? I don't know if you stepped away.
All right, we ready to continue?
Yeah, have we lost Arwin?
No, he's still here.
Okay, he might have just stepped away. Yeah, feel free, carry on.
All right, so I just want to give a warning out here to fellow Christians concerning this Big Bang. Remember, this came from a Jesuit and Catholic priest, so it slammed the brakes on the Christian moniker. So let's take a look at this. The Big Bang came from a naturalistic cause: singularity, quantum fluctuation, nothing. It's also a first law of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics violation, right? Unicorn farts, something similar. God's word said God caused it. Big difference right there. Big Bang, billions of years ago. God's word, thousands of years ago. See Genesis 5:10 in the Doctrine of Salvation. The Big Bang said sun before the earth. God's word said earth before the sun. Big Bang states earth, molten rock first. God's word, earth, water first. Big Bang, fish before trees. God's word, trees before fish. Big Bang, dinosaurs before birds. God's word, birds before dinosaurs. I don't want to go down any traps with this. Let's just leave it where it lays right here. Something you want to stop right now?
Well, the one thing I was going to say, you've circled and said you're not going to get into dinosaurs, you say?
Yeah, Don, I'd bring this topic up because everyone's talking about dinosaurs, even though some flat earthers have this issue with dinosaurs. I don't want to go down. I don't want to get bogged down there. I just want to just highlight. Okay. Yeah, you're probably one of them, right?
Yeah. Well, my wife actually, we're going down a tangent. You've said no, fine. I'm more than happy. We're talking Big Bang, that's fine. That's a side tangent that we can do without at this point, but dinosaurs aren't real. Anyway,
yeah,
Betty,
I just want to keep... Go ahead.
Betty,
Sorry.
did you want to go first?
Yeah, these dinosaurs.
About them dinosaurs. No, seriously.
Well, aren't you... Are you going to address that in the evolution presentation, maybe?
For dinosaurs, I highly doubt it.
Okay.
It's going to be flamethrowered well before that.
Okay. No, this is clear for me. Yeah. They do it the other way around. They try to basically, God's word is not scientific, they say, and their things is scientific. Although that's more a religion than what God's word is, I think.
So the reason I bring that up is they definitely have dinosaurs in their models. So that's why I brought it up. You understand that? I have to deal with that. And if we want to get technical, Behemoth and Leviathan could be considered dinosaurs. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, you have to define dinosaurs. Huh? What are those?
Yeah, it's a little speculative on my part, but I wanted everyone on the same sheet of music.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah,
in this moment, I've decided this is a tangent we can do without. If I'm honest, I'm sorry, Betty. Sorry, John. This is all my fault.
Paula, it's my fault because I seen it sitting there and I said, you know what? Should I delete that? And I said, nah, let that go.
Well, it's been like thrice highlighted where you were hoping we'd be brushed aside. So there we go. Paula will definitely bring this back on track because this is very much a Christian point that's made often by other Christians in terms of it sometimes gets spun into Satanism. In other words, they're inverting what the Bible says, but maybe Paula will have something to bring us back on track.
Yeah, I mean, everything in that short little list there is opposite the order that things allegedly evolved. But even among differences of opinion between Christians is the problem of there being no sun for the earth to revolve around. It was the earth came first and then the sun was made later, so there's nothing for it to be orbiting. But the thing about just real quick about dinosaurs is I believe that dragons are attested by so many cultures that, and then one of those in Job that John mentioned, Leviathan, sounds like a fire-breathing dragon that lived in the marshes. So, I don't say there are no such things as dinosaurs. I think there are a lot of extinct creatures. What they really were is anybody's guess, because paleontologists will often take a fragment of a bone from one spot and go a mile away and take another fragment and say this is one organism. So that's ridiculous. As far as just real quick about the specimens in museums not being on, the ones on display are not the real bones. Nobody in their right mind would do that. If they had real bones, they wouldn't put the real ones up. So that's kind of a ridiculous point that a lot of Christians will make. But the point being, on that short list, when it comes to Big Bang, it is absolutely tied to evolutionary theory, and is being used to, both of those theories being used to prop each other up as just those stories, and every bit as much of a blind faith as anything else. And if they can make stuff up, which they obviously are, then so can anyone else. And what actually happened is a question, as far as origins are concerned, that each person has to decide ultimately, can something come from nothing, and can life come from non-life? And everybody knows what my answer to that is. I mean, any Christian would say that. But the point being that this alternate theory, this Big Bang and evolution, isn't any better. In fact, it's far worse.
Because we've covered it 4 times. A guy called JLB, JLB.com, go and check him out. He did a full movie. He went out and checked out the original claimed, what would you call them, like relics, but the actual originals that they have out in Australia. Massive trip. He did a full movie about it. Check it out. It's at JLB.com. I don't think he does anything on YouTube anymore. So that's the only place you'll find that information, as far as I'm aware. But he does a full film on the dino hoax, as he puts it. Now, I'm not saying I agree with it. I do. Dinosaurs aren't real. But yeah, go and check it out. It's very even-handed, very unbiased. Just presents the information as it is presented to him. Nevertheless, hopefully that will draw a line under the dinosaur bit. But nevertheless, Arwin, are you back with us? You are. We can't hear you. I don't know if there's something wrong with your mic, because you're still on the call. Give Arwin a couple of seconds. If we can't get him back, hopefully we will. Nope. Betty, Paula, anything else you want to add? If not, we'll move on.
Nope, not right now.
Nope, nothing.
Right, we've got you back up, John, if you want to continue.
Yeah, I want to stop here, because if it wasn't explicitly stated above, then it was heavily implied, right? The something from nothing. So let's take a look at this. I got this from David Darling on creating something from nothing. Check this out. What is the big deal? The biggest deal of all is how you get something out of nothing. Don't let the cosmologists try to kid you on this one. They have not got a clue either, despite the fact that they are doing a pretty good job of convincing themselves and others that this is really not a problem. In the beginning, they will say, there was nothing, no time, space, or matter. Then there was a quantum fluctuation from which, whoa, stop right there. You see what I mean? First there is nothing, then there is something. And the cosmologists try to bridge the two with a quantum flutter, a tremor of uncertainty that sparks it all off. Then they are away, and before you know it, they have pulled 100 billion galaxies out of their quantum hats. I love that one. Now we're going to get into some heavy hitters here from David Albert and Alan Guth on the similar topic. First of all, from David Albert on The Origin of Everything, he reviewed a Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Blouse. The fact that some arrangements of fields happen to correspond to the existence of particles and some don't is not a whit more mysterious than the fact that some of the possible arrangements of my fingers happen to correspond to the existence of a fist and some don't. And the fact that particles can pop in and out of existence over time as those fields rearrange themselves is not a whit more mysterious than the fact that fists can pop in and out of existence over time as my fingers rearrange themselves. And none of these poppings, if you look at them right, amount to anything even remotely in the neighborhood of a creation from nothing. And let's finish up with Alan Guth, professor of physics at MIT. In this context, a proposal that the universe was created from empty space is no more fundamental than a proposal that the universe was spawned by a piece of rubber. It might be true, but one would still want to ask where the piece of rubber came from. I'll stop right there to see if you guys have anything to say on that. I thought they were pretty good.
I think if you divide by 0 rubber, you get infinite rubber, don't you?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Start with Paula.
Yeah, it's preposterous if you really think about it, that everybody wants there to be magic at some point. There's always the charge that, oh, well, this is, your belief in a creator in God is also a fantasy. I'm like, well, where does that put you? You've got nothing better, and yours is not intelligent. So the point is that this is not a rational scientific theory in the slightest. It's all magic and mirrors and smoke and fantasy. So why is it better? It isn't. It's worse because it can't even explain itself by its own rules. And that's all I have to say at this point.
Betty?
Yeah, I completely agree with Paula. She said it all. So yeah, that's basically my opinion too.
Arwin? Yeah, well, the Earth is flat. Thanks, Arwin. Good to have you. Any more for any more? I think there's a bit more, isn't there, on the presentation, John?
Oh, yeah, we got some more to go.
Right, ready when you are?
All right. If you thought the above was complete F-72 retard, then somebody hold the nebular hypothesis as beer. Because we're going well off the reservation hill. Here, this is still taught in Quackademia, by the way. So let's start it off. This is from Immanuel Kant, 1755. The General History of Nature and Theory of the Heavens. Some 4 billion years ago, yeah, sure, the sun had ejected a tail or a filament of material that cooled and collected and thus formed the planets, right? Have you guys heard of this before? Real quick. Yeah, you know.
Well, you've mentioned it to us a couple of days ago. Does that spoil the magic?
Yeah, it does.
No, I've never heard of it. I've never heard of this. No, this is definitely new to me.
yeah. It's, you guys have had to have heard this down the line. Paula?
Yeah, I know I'd heard of it. I just looked at it and laughed and walked on. I didn't study it.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and continue. So, see, the originator of this nebular hypothesis mess met with Edmund Halley of Halley's Comet fame at Cambridge. Then Halley passed it off to Kant. The originator was Emanuel Swedenborg. He proffered the nebular hypothesis nonsense to Edmund Halley 21 years before Kant. And Simon Laplace also had his little spin, no pun intended, in 1796. Guess where Swedenborg got the idea from? Guess where he got the idea from, folks? By talking with spirits from Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and the moon. And I'm not kidding. This is documented. I'll stop right here. What do you guys think about this so far?
I think you should leave the name on screen so we can have some people that... Do you remember when we had Bilu? Remember that?
Bilu?
Arwin. Where have you been? Did your mic stop working?
Sorry, I was busy in the kitchen.
No worries. So, yeah, we had Bilu, right? And basically it's this I can't remember the name of the documentary now, but it was a Flat Earth documentary, and one of the people on it was talking to an alien called Bilu. And that essentially was somebody discrediting him as an individual and therefore, decrying everything in the documentary. But it became something that we kind of, as Flat Earthers, adopted. But I think this should be the same, right? He's divining this from...
I don't know. It was just their experience. They had an alien experience.
Do not say the E word.
What?
What's the
Why
E
not?
word?
No, but that's how the South Americans,
What's the
many
E
of
word?
them just see it.
What's the E word? What's the E word?
Experience. Different context, sorry.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I would just say real quick that Swedenborg had basically a religious movement that he started then that is really off the wall in every respect, but it shouldn't be surprising coming from this source. You can look him up. There's biographies on him. So this wasn't all he was into, is all I'll say.
Of course.
All right, you want to continue? This is really.
But anyway, it was the
Off the
convex Earth. Convex Earth. That was Belu's
Oh, that was
thing.
it. That was it. It was the Convex Earth documentary that had Beely. But I'm just saying this is far more eccentric, if you ask me, especially as it's part of the mainstream narrative. I mean, we didn't hear anything from Betty. I don't know if Betty's now disappeared.
No, I'm still here. It's everything has been said. I think talking to spirits. Come on.
Exactly. This is a joke. It should be hyped up. You know, people take note. If you want to troll, use stuff that's part of the rhetoric. It's far funnier. Anyway.
Oh, and I just real quick, I did do a video on Swedenborg once. I called it Swindleborg. So there you go.
Swindleborg. Love it. Right, you're up again, John.
Oh,
All
wait.
right.
Before that, talking about trolling, Riley just went live. So, continue.
Yeah, might as well plug him now. You've done it. So check out Sleeping Warrior. He's live now. Sleeping Warrior.
Yeah, after this is over.
Exactly.
Well, it doesn't matter. This will get dedicated to like a recording anyway. The majority of people watch it on the recording, although there's 200 people plus watching live now. But you know, shout out to all of you who are watching on the recording. But yeah, do check out Sleeping Warrior's channel. Very good channel. Feel free to continue, John.
All right, nebular. If this wasn't, out of this world, just hold on to your hats. Nebular hypothesis aficionados, allow me to introduce to you the law of conservation of angular momentum. This states that angular momentum is conserved when there is zero net torque, read vacuum, applied to a system where the system is the object or objects that are rotating. And you can sort of picture this, right? You got the sun as this, dispersed gas cloud, and it starts rotating for I don't know why, and spinning, and then pulling everything closer to itself. That's more or less their spin. No pun intended. But we can picture, you can picture a skater. It's easier to picture it that way, spinning faster when their arms are pulled closer to the body. If you ever watch the figure skaters, they have their arms out at their sides. They can't spin as fast. But as soon as they pull them into their body, they can really smoke, right? Same sort of concept. In the formation of the sun from a nebula in space, the same effect would have occurred as the gases allegedly contracted, right? That's a second law of thermodynamics violation, by the way, into the center to form the sun. This would have caused the sun to spin very rapidly, just like the skater. But the sun spins very slowly, while the planets move rapidly around the sun. In fact, although the sun has over 99.86% of the mass of the solar system, it has less than 2% of the angular momentum. Anyone see a problem? This pattern is directly opposite to the pattern Mystic Meg prediction for the nebular hypothesis. And the outer planets are larger than the inner ones. Again, directly opposite of the Nostradamus prediction. From Nei, birth of Uranus and Neptune. Psst. Astronomers who model the formation of the solar system have kept the dirty little secret. Uranus and Neptune don't exist. Or at least computer simulations have never explained how planets as big as the two gas giants could form so far from the sun. Bodies orbited so slowly in the outer parts of the solar system that the slow process of gravitational accretion, which doesn't and never existed, would need more time than the age of the solar system to form bodies with 14.5 and 17.1 times the mass of the Earth. So, this is a joke, man.
Hold on, John. Couldn't they just by coincidence, because of how the gases and everything was distributed as it came into being, couldn't have just formed at that specific time by coincidence?
Are you drunk?
Just a little.
I thought so. You're drunk.
Sorry.
Unbelievable.
Right, don't be naughty. Now we know that you're drunk.
No.
Anyway.
All right, let's continue here. More, the nebular hypothesis Carnival tent predicts that as the nebula spiraled inwards, all the resulting planets and comets would rotate and orbit in the same direction. It's called prograde. But Venus and Uranus rotate in the opposite direction, called retrograde. So, Lucy, you have some more explaining to do, even in your own model. They contradict themselves even in their own reification fallacy. Some more retrograde orbits and satellites and moon from Neptune, Triton, from Jupiter, Ananke, Carmi, Pasiphae, and Sinope, and from Saturn, Phoebe. There is no plausible solar origin of the fairy tale planets. There is no plausible natural origin of the sun. We're going to get into that here in a few seconds. So let me stop right here. Anything? Any comments? Question?
Yeah, do you want to go first, Betty?
Yeah. So Neptune and Jupiter, was it? Don't exist?
Uranus.
Uranus. Okay. Can we see those through a telescope from Earth? Have we ever seen them?
Oh yeah, they can show you them.
Okay.
I saw Uranus once through a telescope.
Oh no.
So Uranus, whatever. We can see it, but I don't quite follow the problem, if I'm ruthlessly honest. I know this is the second time you've explained it to me, because it's not a problem in regards to just the simple existence of it as a gas. It's about the physical size of it and the accretion of it. But I mean, is that as simple as that? It's just too big. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Wait one.
No worries. It's often the case with these things. They have quite lengthy explanations because you've got to get to the nub of the actual problem through the mathematics and the starting and ending points for the contradiction in the first instance. But ultimately speaking, there's just too much mass for Uranus.
Yeah. Yeah. So these bigger planets shouldn't be in the outer ring. They should be in the middle more than Earth and Venus and Mercury, for example. That's the whole thing, I think.
Sure. And go on, Paula.
The thing about the skater and pulling the arms in was to show that the things, if anything, is flying off the sun as it's, the center of everything, that the biggest things should be nearer the center to get enough angular momentum, and they're farther away, and then the direction of rotation of each thing on its own axis is going the wrong way sometimes. So it's a massive contradictions of the theory. And yet they say somehow this is all the result of this Big Bang explosion, and we're just supposed to accept that it's true, even though it makes no sense in any measurable laws of physics that anybody, that they all say they accept as true. So we got distance, we got size, and we got direction of rotation.
And isn't it also that only the Earth is wobbling? Isn't that?
I'm not sure about if anything else is wobbling.
Do I detect the orbital wobble? Orbital wobble?
You tend to know this sort of stuff. What's the deal with Earth wobble in the heliocentric model? Do you know, Arwin?
No, I just thought orbital wobble. Every time it comes up, it's always hilarious. So
maybe someone will let us know from the chat or when we come to the Discord server shortly. Maybe that's my point to plug. So again, there's a link in the info box below the video that's live. If you're watching live, obviously, you can join the Discord server and you can ask questions in this regard to any of the panel. We'll open the mic one at a time and you can ask a question. Hopefully it'll be coherent. But yeah, let us know in the chat on YouTube now if you're watching. Again, if you can tell us what's the deal with wobble.
Wait, if I remember vaguely, of course, because I'm kind of influenced by alcohol, orbital wobble has something to do with the rotation of the Earth axis, the spin of the Earth, the presupposed spin of the Earth, that it kind of like a spin basically wobbles in a circle. That's supposedly the orbital wobble. if
but why
I remember
does
correctly.
only the Earth do that and not all the other planets?
It's just because that's how the Earth formed.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a special pleading, I think.
Yeah, it's a special wobble.
Had a few drinks. The Earth had a few drinks. Now it's got a wobble.
I just got back. Was the question, Nathan? You had a question. Was it answered?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Well, okay.
Well, maybe I'm wrong, Betty. I've forgotten if I had a question.
Well, it was about the bigger planets being on the outside, but I think that Paula answered that pretty well. And I said, why is the Earth the only one that's wobbling and not all the other planets? I mean, they might turn the other way, but why don't they wobble? Why do we wobble?
What is the wobble?
Well, Weeble wobbles, but they don't fall down.
What is the wobble? What is
it? All
wobble?
depends on the nature, the arrival of the type of rotation of the planet.
Yeah, I think it has to do with them making the model work. That's the whole thing.
What is it exactly?
That's all it is.
What's being described as like a gyroscopic motion that's not stable? Is that what we're describing when we say Earth wobble in the heliocentric model, of course?
Yeah.
Right. So. Like a top. If you spin a top, if it isn't perfectly started, it will kind of have a cycle of where it's kind of leaning over just a little bit, and it'll go around slowly as it's spinning very fast, but it will tip a little bit, and that angle of tip will go around slowly in a circle as well. That's what they mean by Earth wobble, I think.
Okay, that's kind of what I was asking. Excellent, brilliant, thank you, Paula. I think that's it, John. If you want to move on.
All right, this is going to lead into sun formation. If it wasn't explicitly stated, but it's heavily implied, so I thought that might give me an avenue in, and this is going to be great. I didn't do anything to this citation, so we're just going to read this citation out. This is from Eva Novotny, Introduction to Stellar Atmospheres and Interiors. So check this out. Listen very closely. The process by which an interstellar cloud is concentrated until it is held together gravitationally to become a protostar is not known. In quantitative work, it has simply been assumed that the number of atoms per cubic centimeter has somehow increased about 1,000-fold over that in a dense nebula. The two principal factors inhibiting the formation of a protostar are that the gas has a tendency to disperse before the density becomes high enough for self-gravitation to be effective, and that any initial angular momentum would cause excessively rapid rotation as the material contracts. Some mechanism must therefore be provided for gathering the material into a sufficiently small volume that the self-gravitation may become effective, and the angular momentum must in some way be removed, right? If you haven't seen about 10 hammer smashes to the head, then we're going to go over them right here. I love this.
I had serious trouble following all that.
Okay, that's all right. You're good. I'm gonna do it again. Okay, we ready? I'll do it again. Okay. The process okay, you ready?
Ready, let's go.
Okay, the process by which an interstellar cloud is concentrated until it is held together gravitationally to become a protostar is not known, right? That's the first problem. In a quantitative work, it has simply been assumed that the number of atoms per cubic centimeter has somehow increased about 1,000-fold over that in a dense nebula. The two principal factors inhibiting the formation of a protostar are that the gas has a tendency to disperse. What is that? Well, that's the second law of thermodynamics.
Sounds familiar.
Before the density becomes high enough for self-gravitation. So, which gravity, Einsteinian or Newtonian, would that be, love? They are both debunked, by the way, to be effective. And that any initial angular momentum would cause excessively rapid rotation as the material contracts. Some mechanism that directly violates the second law of thermodynamics must therefore be provided for gathering the material into a sufficiently small volume that self-gravitation that doesn't exist may become effective, and this is one of the best parts. The angular momentum must in some way be removed. This is a circus tent show. When I first read this, I couldn't believe it. I seen all these things in my mind, my little remarks as I was going through. This is preposterous. So let's get into some. Hold on a second. I'm going to get into some heavy.
Hold on. No, it's kind of sloppy because what they should have actually said is it should have been neutralized. So it's very weird. Removed sounds like censoring, like completely making everyone forget it exists. Very dubious that way.
So from Hoyle and Rick Ramsing, there is no reasonable astronomical scenario in which mineral grains in space clouds can condense. One of my favorites, Jeffrey Burbridge, astrophysicist, director, Kitt Peak National Observatory, in Science. If stars did not exist, it would be easy to prove that this is what we would expect. I love it. Oh, Abraham Loeb of Harvard Center for Astrophysics. The truth is that we don't understand star formation at a fundamental level. Yeah. The truth is, Abraham, willful ignorance. You don't understand it because you can't understand it purposely because it directly violates the laws of quantum mechanics and the second law of thermodynamics that you know. So if you've chosen to whistle past the graveyard and float a feigned argument from ignorance fallacy with an implied argument to the future fallacy wrapped around its incoherent ankles to keep your mind-numbing just-so story fairy tales alive. Yeah, real scientific there, Abraham. From Paul Davies, the greatest puzzle is where all the order in the universe came from originally. How did the universe get wound up if the second law of thermodynamics predicts asymmetric unwinding toward disorder? Yeah, that's right. It's a mystery wrapped inside an enigma. Real puzzle. Is hydrogen bonding, sipping tea, and jogging in the rain unsolvable riddles, Paul? Clown. The really scary thing, most of you never even look at these Formica deep hammer meat forefires. Just take their word for it, the least bit of due diligence and scrutiny, like the spinning ball fiasco, then mindlessly parrot this abject buffoonery. Comments? Questions?
Not much to say. I mean, from start to finish, it's all a house of cards.
Yeah. How did the people? I think that they just basically want to have some job to do, but know that it's all a hoax. With all these quotes that you have from these people, I mean, citations. I think, how can they do what they do? Why don't they stop?
That's a very real thing in academia. You have to keep coming up with something new to be relevant and keep your job and keep your reputation and your funding above all. You have to keep putting out books. You have to come up with some new theory, just like paleontologists have to find some missing link,
Yeah, but they have to be in the narrative, right? They have to stay in that narrative story because otherwise they don't get that funding and attention. And they'd be kicked out.
Publish or perish.
And and it's some. It seems to me that they want to basically say something to the world, like we are in here, but we don't know what we're doing. It's something like that, I think.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It is funny like that. Yeah, we're out here. We have no clue, but we're here.
Yeah, pay us, please. That's funny.
I wanted to wait till that fizzled out before I asked the question because it was back on a previous point. So is precession Earth wobble in terms of what they describe? Because that's what one Mr. Gregory from the chat had said.
Progression.
Precession.
Okay, yeah. I believe so. But I can't explain it because I think it's an ad hoc explanation why the whole thing with the stars and stuff work and why it has to be a sphere. Because you don't need that wobble on a flat plane.
Because precession is also a component problem of gyroscopes as well, as I understand, that they have the same issue of the spinning top. That's what a gyroscope basically is. and you don't want it to precess. You don't want it to move in its orientation at all. So that's the same idea with this planetary spin idea that, or stars, I guess, can spin as well, that you it should tell them it is reverse engineering. It's ad hoc. It absolutely is that. But they're trying to come up with some plausible, quasi-real, believable scenario that would explain various things that they come across that turn out to be surprises to their theories that they supposedly predicted this stuff. But, and then they reverse engineer it and change the past and say, yep, that's what we predicted. It's ridiculous.
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, shout out to Mr. Gregory. I mean, we've been talking about gyro precession recently, and for me to not put the two together, thank you very much indeed. Alan, did you have anything to add before we move on?
He might be in the kitchen again.
He's getting more beer.
He's doing shots now.
That's it. He's onto the tequila. Right, ready when you are, John.
Yeah, we're going to wrap this up over the next 2 minutes. We're just going to talk about the standard model of the sun. So we got about 3 or 4 minutes left, just to let you know.
Just one more plug then. So yeah, if you want to join this show right now, there's a link to the Discord server. If you're not a member, you have to join. That'll take you a couple of minutes. But yeah, feel free to join the public link, and you can actually ask us, any of us, questions about this specific subject from the Discord server. Feel free to continue, John.
Yeah, like I said, the last subject, I had to go over this since the sun was already implied. We must talk about this fiasco. So the standard model states that the sun is more or less a nuclear reactor, right? You've all heard this before. Excuse me. Allegedly, it has an inner core temperature of 15 million Kelvin. So this is a little model that they have with the inner core at 15 million, right? I just want to locate you guys. The photosphere is the face or the surface of the sun. The chromosphere is just above the surface, and of course the corona. This is going to become important here in a second.
This has all been measured, right?
I was going to drop a gag in at the end saying something. I was just trying to phrase the gag in my head while you said that, Owen. Something like, any evidence of the distance to the core of the sun? But I hadn't quite formulated the joke well enough yet, and then you sprung up. So you've ruined that now. Thanks, Arwin.
Sorry.
This is just what they identify it. They just label them, right? Just a little convention here so everyone's on the same sheet. You got it? So this is the temperature profile, right? I want you to take a look at this. Along the y-axis is logarithmic in temperature, right? Along the x-axis is above the convection zone. Distance above the convection zone right here, okay? So can you see what's happening here? So in the photosphere, coming from the inner core, the temperature slowly dropped. This is what you would expect. We're just inside their model now. I'm just going in the clown tent. We're inside their model, and the temperature's coming down. It's looking good, right? It's about 5,800 Kelvin, like I said. Then, as you get closer to the chromosphere from the photosphere, the temperature slowly starts to rise. That should raise an eyebrow real quick for you, right? If that didn't raise an eyebrow, this should set your hair on fire. Between the chromosphere and the corona, this temperature profile goes hyperparabolic from about, we'll give it 10,000 Kelvin all the way up here to 1,000,000 Kelvin or real close.
Sounds like
it even gets higher out here.
Sounds like Owen's blood alcohol level.
Yeah, right. That's what it looks like now.
What? Right? Man, so I seriously, for English levels, I'm like a teenager on alcohol. Seriously, right. I have nothing in my blood. Nothing.
You're like a drunk heckler. Okay, hold on to it. We're almost done.
We're nearly there. Sorry, that was my fault. I deliberately did that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I appreciate that, man. What are friends for? So look at what we got here. Is there something jumping off the screen at you? See the problem? So the inner core temp of the sun is 15 million Kelvin. The outer surface of the sun or photosphere is approximately 5,800 Kelvin. On its way to and through the chromosphere, the temperature slowly rises, like I said, then goes parabolic from 10,000 Kelvin to 500,000 Kelvin when nearing the corona, and then 1 million Kelvin to 10 million Kelvin. What's the problem here? I suppose the fairy tale pseudoscience priests collectively missed the lectures on the second law of thermodynamics. Heat really does flow up parabolic hills, right? This is preposterous, folks. They even put this in their own literature. This is tantamount to standing near a wood stove, then moving back 500 meters because it's too hot. Then you spontaneously combust. That's how ridiculous this is.
Hold on, John. Hold on.
So thanks for your ear. Have a nice day.
With microwaves.
Hold on. Thank you very much for your presentation, John, as much as the ending was hijacked by Alwyn. Thank you very much.
Sorry. But seriously, with microwave technology, you can actually distance-based create heat or effects. So, hey, if the sun is electrical based, more like a microwave oven type of setup, instead of hydrogen burning ball, then maybe that does kind of make sense.
That's lovely. We could come up with a new Just So story. We're hopefully going to pummel the old Just So story, though. Let's just stick to pummeling the living daylights out of the Big Bang nonsense when it comes to the sun. So, who wants to go first, Betty or Paula?
I was just going to say, isn't it the whole point of this exercise to show what's wrong with the standard model, which is not electric universe? I mean, there's was like at least 10 years ago, something called the cosmology statement, signed by scientists from around the world. And they were, and not creation scientists, just to get that out of the way, but scientists around the world who saw so many holes in this whole Big Bang theory that they just couldn't in good conscience support it anymore. And they blasted it harder than anybody, that, the current model, and turned toward electric universe plasma model of cosmology. And the point being that when we say that this is a problem with the laws of thermodynamics violation, we're not trying to fix it for them by coming up with, telling them, well, electric universe makes a lot of sense and everything. The problem is that they think they know the core temperature, and they know the corona temperature, and they know every temperature along the way. Whether they actually measured that or not is beside the point. It breaks all their own laws. So that's all I would say on that.
Betty?
Yeah, it's the same that you already said. How is it possible to measure the sun and also the inside of the sun? That's nonsense, right? So, but I've seen this one on Catexis's channel, and it blew me away right then and there. I mean, if this is the model, then why does nobody ever comment on this? Why do they keep it on with this model? I mean, it's done.
I know it was rhetorical, but just so I can have a bash. What they do in terms of the magic trick is they seem to put in bold typeface on the title of the book or on the front cover, whichever way you want to look at it, the measurement of whatever they like. And then on the first page, they just replace the word measurement with calculate from there on in. So as long as it's in bold typeface on the title, they seem to get away with calling it a measurement, even though nothing's ever being measured.
Exactly. Yeah. And they change every numbers and stuff continually. But that's science. It's according to them. Everything tomorrow can be different than today. So because we are progressing.
Okay.
We're getting better.
It's all a giant journey of discovery. Come on.
Discovery into the bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Discovery into the presuppositional. Come on. It's not that difficult to get. Why don't you just get it?
Why don't you just assume R? What's wrong with you? I don't know if you want to summarize. If not, we're going to open up the Discord link. I don't know if you're ready to rock and roll, Betty.
Yeah, I think so.
John, did you want to summarize anything? If not, we'll move straight over to Discord and see if there's any questions forthcoming.
I wonder if he's back yet, because he said he had to go for a couple of minutes. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have a look, see who's in there. Who have we got? They might have to pose their question twice. We've got, I think,
couple
Menace.
people in
Menace
here.
was in first, I think, when I glanced across earlier. I don't know if you can hear us.
Yeah, well, the Righteous Force was first.
Oh, was it the Righteous
was here
Force?
from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. You were paying more attention than I, Betty.
Before we open the panel, I just wanted to make a general comment about R.
Yeah, go ahead, Owen.
I just wanted to, well, basically make everyone look with an open eye to how much space the concept of R has allowed to be presupposed. It's incredible. It's like an infinite space basically came forth from the conceptualization of R. Just the radius alone allowed an infinite space. Isn't that just amazing?
Yeah, can I say a little blessing? Radius Dominus Gravitus Spiritus Sanctus Arwin. Okay, I blessed you with R.
Thank you.
Hopefully we bought enough time for John to return, and then we can get some questions from the public. Is he back? I just don't want the questions to have to come twice. Although that said, we'll probably end up summarising the question or answering it anyway if he's not around. So do you want to open the first mic up, Paula, and make a little Betty, and make an introduction?
Yeah. Let me see. Hello, Righteous Force.
Oh, we got a bit of feedback. Can you close your Skype mic, please?
Yeah, I've already done that.
Really?
Let's see.
Or it might
Close it down. Hello, Righteous Force, are you there?
No, we still definitely have feedback.
You just got a super chat, Nathan.
Oh, shout out to Defund Nessa. Thank you very much for the super chat.
I could hear you.
So it's all good?
It's all good apart from Betty, who's the only one feeding back. Maybe leave the Skype call, actually, Betty. It might be the only way to get around this.
Look, I was just in Discord because you guys were getting buffering on the stream. So I really don't got questions to ask.
Oh, fair enough.
So I guess you can go to the next person.
We can find out if Betty's still got audio from us and with us in the Discord server. Are you still hearing us okay, Betty?
Yes, I can.
Oh, we've still got feedback from you. That's really weird. Okay, well, the guests are okay in terms of their sound for the now, so Betty will be a little bit ethereal.
Microsoft does not like you, Betty. It does not like you.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry, I had to step out for a few minutes.
No, good timing. We're going to get our first actual question, so we've had a little bit of faff with the Discord server, but other than a little bit of feedback from Betty, I think we're ready for our first question from whoever is in there. Phil, do you want to open the mic on Phil? Is he in next?
Yeah, I'm through Skype again, so I've unmuted a couple of people. I've unmuted Newford Rapture, I think. Yeah.
Can you hear us?
He put himself on mute now, so we have that too.
Maybe try.
And
Phil.
I've unmuted now Dorik. Maybe he can speak. Hello, Dorik. Are you out?
No, maybe not. Last but not least, try Phil, maybe.
Hey, hello. I'm unmuted.
Hello, very good to have you.
Hi, I listened to R1 talk about that R. I was asking, is it possible to have an R on the flat Earth?
Well, not as a radius of the Earth.
If it were like a circle, something like around the equator?
Well, only if you presuppose the Earth is a disk. Then,
Is this Kosho?
Yeah.
No.
Does that answer your
Shout
question?
out to Shroomy.
Does that answer your question?
That wasn't me, though. That was the rig.
I answered your question, so are you satisfied?
Well, if it wasn't
Hello?
Are there any other questions? Is there a Phil on the panel? I keep saying his name, but I don't know if his mic's been opened yet.
Let me see. Yes, his mic is open.
How you doing, Phil? Can you hear us?
You have to unmute yourself. No, he's not responding.
Wow. Super busy Discord. People obviously very keen to
you know
ask
what?
questions.
Most people are just like me. Like, I will be like, okay, yeah, I want to join this. Oh, wait, I need to make dinner first. And then you just go away for half an hour or more. And immediately, yeah, people address you, but you're away because you're like doing something else. So I think that tends to happen more often.
You think most people are like you? You meaning drunk?
I'm not that drunk.
I would like to start with end with the start point, which is the dividing by zero thing and coming up with infinity. I mean, that is the start and end of this, really.
I remember when I first told you that, you kind of got pissed off.
Did I?
Yeah, I first told you that. You got a little irate.
I don't remember that. How do you mean got irate? How? I mean, in terms of I can only assume my own actions were that I was pissed off that they could actually say that.
Yeah, that was more or less it. That it was out there for everyone to see. Everyone knows this. I mean, everyone that's in the vicinity of this information, they all know this.
It's another one of those times. I mentioned it on the debate the other day in reference to something else, but often at the end of conversations with yourself or with Sleeping Warrior, at the end, the conclusion is, so they just made this shit up. And that's the case here. They just made it up. So they just say, divide by zero, you get everything. Zero volume can contain everything. And you're like, what? This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. If you've got a zero volume container, you haven't even got a very small space to put anything. You don't have a container at all. You've got zero volume. So what do you get from having no space to put anything in the first instance? Everything. It's a bloody outrage. It's complete nonsense.
Exactly.
But they don't just make it up. They do kind of strictly presuppose and then build honestly based on those presuppositional assumptions. And make it mathematically work.
Hide it. Well, mathematically work, that doesn't mean anything.
Of course it doesn't. Because that's just what they do.
Right. And there's there's a barrier to entry, right? Because you have a bunch of astrophysicists are posting tensor equations, and you're not going to get any questions if you don't have any acumen in that area, right? They can do anything with differential geometry, right? Differential equations, tensor equations, calculus. No one's going to know. Who's going to know, right? They just come up with anything, and people are so like, oh, I don't even want to deal with that. Yeah, we'll take it. That's true. Right? But it's nothing. It's a room. And we're going to discover another room next week. It's like it's all the walls have mirrors all over it, and then they put up a whole bunch of smoke in it. Right? Next week's going to be fairy tale evolution. Just to let you know. So that's where we're headed next week.
There's someone from the Discord server. I don't know if you want to open all the mics on the Discord server, Betty.
I've done 2 of 3. I have unmuted already, so if they can speak up, then we can see who wants to talk.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Great. I have a quick question for you guys.
Go ahead.
So gravity versus density. If you were to drop an accelerometer, what would the theory of gravity say happens to accelerometer, and what does density say would happen to accelerometer?
Exactly the same thing.
Well, gravity doesn't exist, so I have no idea what gravity...
No, hold on. Gravity is the presuppositional-based replacement of the relative density theory to the detail. So
The
it
question
would
is, if
say
you drop
exactly the
an
same.
accelerometer in a gravity field, why would it go to zero? Wouldn't it keep reading because gravity is a giant field of energy that never goes away?
That's an affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy right there.
Exactly.
So you presupposed that there was a gravity field and then told us what would happen in the gravity field that you presupposed.
No, if there was a gravity field, because you can do an experiment. You can drop an accelerometer. Would it continue to read 9.8 meters per second, or would it drop to zero?
Yeah, it's an affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy. If there is a gravitational field, I will observe X on a gravitometer when I drop it. I observe X on my gravitometer when I drop it, therefore we have a gravitational field. If P, then Q, therefore P. Affirming the consequent, formal logical fallacy. Not only that, you beg the question. So you're assuming your outcome. You're also begging the question and you're affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. You're assuming gravity. If gravity? Oh right, isn't that the thing you're trying to prove as opposed to presuppose in your formal logical fallacy?
Yep.
Right. So in a more colloquial sense, you presuppose it.
I asked a question.
Don't get annoyed. Just because you've used a fallacy, don't get stroppy.
Yeah, just correct it. Come back with a better question. Your question's void. That's not a problem. Come up with another question.
Would that be
What happens when you drop an
symptomatic fallacy
accelerometer? What would you
backlash?
expect to see? What would you expect to see in a gravity field? What would you expect to see in a density?
Which gravity? Which gravity were we talking about? Newtonian or Einsteinian? If you want to continue down this road,
Do both.
can't do both. They're both mutually exclusive.
Okay.
Got to pick one.
It doesn't even matter which one. He's gonna presuppose it in the first place. So
Yeah, we're letting him.
Well, when you design an experiment, you think about it. You're trying to figure out what you expect the results to be based on different ideas.
Okay. What's the I love that word. Thank you very much. So what are
I
the
asked
three
I asked a very
constituent
simple
parts?
question. What would you guys expect if you were to drop an accelerometer? What would happen in the world where gravity exists, and what would happen in the world
so
where
you're
it
going
is
to
a
ask the
density?
same question that just got answered to you, right?
That wasn't an answer. That was a dodge.
We just answered. It was a fallacy. You invoked a fallacy. It's void. Your argument's void.
However, if you want us
There
to
is
beg
no
the
argument.
question,
It's a question.
sure. Your question was
You're
answered by
designing
me.
an experiment.
You don't have to keep
If you're
talking.
doing an
Just
experiment-
try and listen. Your question was answered by me. So you've invoked a logical fallacy. In fact, two, begging the question and affirming the consequent. Now, that automatically makes your argument void. Now, to re-ask the question 3 times and demand that we presuppose it, we said, okay, fine. We'll beg the question. We'll play along with you. Which gravity would you like to use? And you've told us, you pick one. No. We're begging the question along with you. We're using your fallacy to play along with you. Now, we can just say, okay, fine. You don't understand where you've used a fallacy. Sod off. But we're not. We're playing along. But you've got to play along too. So which gravity do you want to use?
Pick Newtonian then.
Perfect.
That's fine.
I've no idea
So
where
if you're
John was
designing
going
an
with
experiment, you ask a question, you have a couple different ideas of what you expect, and then you run your experiment.
this. Perfect. You've just
You have an
reminded me where
accelerometer.
John was going with this. Thank you for that. So experiment,
Oh,
you
yeah.
say? Experiment,
Yeah,
That
you
was
say?
my question. Nathan, that was exactly what I asked. I asked a question about an
Sure.
experiment, and I asked what results you would expect to see.
Perfect.
That's
I
a
forgot
fair
where John was
question.
going with it.
It's not proposing. It's not supposing anything. When you're designing an experiment, you think of what outcomes you would believe could be possible.
Okay. No. Well,
And
no. Sorry.
Yes, you
I
can
need to make
guess
it.
and say
I don't
gravity
need to
for
keep
one. and you
talking.
pick
When
Newtonian.
you finish your statement, just let us know.
If you have an accelerometer and you drop that accelerometer on Earth, what would you expect the outcome to be if Newtonian gravity was true versus if density was the cause?
the same thing. I said it before.
Well, then
Exactly
you said no.
the same.
So you kind of waffled a little bit. That's okay. So you'd expect it to go to zero in both situations, correct?
No, the gravity aberration theory is a replacement of relative density. Relative density is exactly what gravity is presupposed to do.
So you say the results are the same. Nathan, do you agree?
It makes absolutely no difference. It's a logical fallacy. Begging the question and affirming the consequent. This is meaningless.
I guess it's interesting to say that you can't run tests on gravity because you have to presuppose it. So you can't prove it in either case through science, per Nathan.
You're assuming that a side effect is an actual
That's how the scientific
I'm sorry, the
works.
guest.
You observation.
I'm sorry,
you run
guest.
a test.
We didn't hear half of that. I'm
you make
really
a hypothesis
sorry.
and you run a test.
The one time I didn't want someone to interrupt you, we didn't hear what you had to say. I'm sorry, guest. I've forgotten your name, by the way. What's your name?
Stephen.
Stephen. Arwin, we didn't get to hear what he said. You interrupted him. Go ahead, Stephen, if you can repeat that.
In science, you make an observation, and then you come up with a hypothesis. Are you telling me that your hypothesis is a logical fallacy every time in science?
Of course not.
Whether it's gravity or density or space monkeys pulling on it, you have to come up with a hypothesis. Is that hypothesis always, no matter what, a logical fallacy?
Of course
yes
not.
or no?
No, obviously not.
Okay, good. Perfect. Great. So if my hypothesis is, and you come up with a null one as well, my hypothesis is, hey, it's density. My null hypothesis is that it's not density, but it could be something else, let's say gravity. Then I run a test, right? That's a fair, basic way of running some sort of scientific experiment.
Do you want to do this?
Is your test
dedicated
to proving the cause of gravity?
Arwin, hold on. No, that's not. When you said yes and then declared that was fair, no, it wasn't fair. It wasn't anything. Certainly wasn't science. I mean, if you don't, you obviously don't appreciate why it isn't science, but your hypothesis is a supposition, not a logical fallacy. A supposition of what you presume is the cause of an effect. And in this instance, you already identified this earlier. You said, well, unless I presuppose gravity, I can't vary it as a cause. And you were absolutely correct in that assertion. So where are you going to formulate that in as the cause and vary it? If you're going to formulate an actual hypothesis with a variable that you will manipulate, your presumed cause, independent variable, and the effect that you're observing, the dependent variable. Those are the two things in your hypothesis. The null would just be the opposite of that, which is if you say, if gravity, then whatever you're going to declare as your observed phenomena, and then the null being, if gravity, not the phenomena.
Yep. So you could easily make your hypothesis of what you think the cause is, and then you can run experiments to control for that, right? So in this case, you could control for air pressure so that you still have the same density conditions no matter where you are. You can move your location on Earth higher or lower, where gravity would be the assumption or the hypothesis that it's related to your distance to the center of the Earth. And you could test to see how things drop and are affected, and the speed and what the readings are on an accelerometer in all those conditions. That would be a fair test to run, but you guys started out with saying you can't even propose gravity as a hypothesis because it's a logical fallacy.
Sorry.
But you're basing your entire hypothesis on this measurement of some kind of acceleration taking place.
Sure. Yeah, that's what the theory of gravity says. You can see gravity. I can pull up my phone.
But how does that actually prove the effect?
Bear with me a second,
It's just
Darwin.
a deduction-based analysis.
Sorry, you said that you would vary your distance from the Earth and then see the effect.
That's one way of testing. That's one way of controlling.
I just need you to say yes.
The hypothesis,
yes,
your variable
okay,
gravity.
I heard. I'm just confirming I heard correctly. So
yes.
In your hypothesis, that which you vary is your presumed cause.
Right. So you can pick gravity as the presumed cause and you can test for it. But
sorry.
As you guys started out, you said
I've got to stop you. I'm sorry if you think I'm being
gravity.
rude. I'm not. So I will state it again. You have stated that you will vary your distance from Earth.
That is one proposed way of varying gravity as your variable.
Sorry, varying gravity or varying your distance from Earth. So we're not presupposing that we've got gravity. We are going to vary and manipulate that which we presume is the cause of the effect. Now, whether or not you think that the effect is gravity or the cause is gravity is irrelevant when you presuppose it and then vary your distance. Not gravity, but distance. Do you understand?
Gravity, the theory of gravity has an equation that includes distance.
Excuse me. Sorry, I've got to stop you again. Sorry, I need to interrupt you again. I'm very sorry. Sorry to interrupt. If you think I'm rude, I'm not. You're just mistaken again. Theory comes after an adherence to the scientific method. So we're nowhere near theory if we're trying to prove causation, and the causation being gravity. So theory is the culmination of the scientific method being adhered to. So we're not there yet, I'm afraid. So let's not invoke theory.
That's fine. Call it the hypothesis of gravity. I don't care what word you want to use. Let's say call it the hypothesis of gravity.
No, we're not going to do it because
the equation has density.
Newton's law.
Sorry, go ahead.
You invoked Newtonian gravity. Newtonian gravity is the universal law of gravitation. Number one, it's not a theory. And number two, he feigned no hypothesis for gravity. So you're off the reservation already. And number three, the scientific community does not follow Newtonian gravity. They follow Einsteinian gravity, which is the bending of space-time. There's three.
That is that you're changing the cause, not the equation. We have a general equation we can use that you can test.
Excuse me. Sorry, we're not varying mathematics. We are varying and manipulating that which we...
You understand that a variable...
Why are you talking over me? Excuse me, I've said it several times, and you're now talking over me. You're being very rude. No need. I'll try and... Each time I say it, and it's the same thing each time, I say it slightly slower. You don't seem to acknowledge what I say. You go to something else. In this case, mathematics. And tell us about the mathematics you will do. And I will say again, in a scientific experiment, you will vary the thing you think, that's your supposition, the hypothesis, causes the effect. So that's the thing you'll vary. It ipso facto is your cause if you vary it, and it does cause the effect. Now, you're not varying gravity in your example. You're varying distance from Earth. So you are in no way... Excuse me. Every time I get to my conclusion, you talk over me. Now, this might be troubling. We had Tim Osman on the other day. Shout out to Tim Osman. He will air on Sunday on the Flat Earth Debate, doing the same thing, which is when I come to the conclusion, he starts talking, because it is difficult for somebody with a fundamentalist religious belief in gravity to listen to me explain that you're not varying and manipulating gravity, but varying and manipulating something else.
Usually mass.
Or in this case, distance from Earth.
Right, so if you're going to involve gravity, I'm afraid you're going to be falling back to presupposing it based on the aberrations.
When you're testing an electrical field, there are two ways that you can test that electrical field.
We're not testing electrical fields.
Excuse me. Now, Nathan,
sorry.
Now you're interrupting.
Yes, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you because we are not going to have an equivocation. We are not testing electrical fields, and we do not need to equivocate here. We are talking directly.
Well, you have to. Yeah, you have
You're
to have
talking over me. I'm stopping you from
equivocating. Gravity fields are not.
Look,
I have an accelerometer on my phone, and I can see 9.8 meters per second on that accelerometer. You guys can pull out your smartphone.
Rhetoric time for fundy rhetoric.
When I'm running tests on an electrical field, I can move closer or farther away as a variable.
Sorry, we're not testing electrical fields. You just ignored what I just said. It's getting frustrating.
But it's getting frustrating because you're saying things that are irrelevant, Nathan.
Are we testing electrical fields?
Are interesting.
Are we trying to demonstrate a scientific evidence of gravity? It sounded like...
I'm trying to explain a field and how you test a field, whether it be a gravity field or electrical field.
Sorry, we're trying
to... But you're presupposing the gravity field. The electrical field is
I'm not
actually
presupposing anything. It's a hypothesis that you can run a test on. Whether or not you can run a test is the question.
No, hold on. You're missing the point. Electrical fields are measurable.
Let's put him out his misery.
Not.
What are the three things you need in an experiment? 3 constituent
Nathan,
parts.
if you can't focus on a very, very simple...
Just told us you've got a hypothesis. Presumably this will be backed by experiment. So we need to now establish whether or not you understand what you are telling us or you are pretending. So tell me now, on the fly, what the 3 constituent parts of an experiment are.
Nathan, I proposed an experiment. You are not listening to that experiment. And you didn't let me finish the explanation of the experiment.
Before you explain what an experiment is...
You need to go back to...
Listen to me. Listen.
Science. I don't care.
Is this an obfuscation because you can't do what's being requested of you? If you're going to tell me what you're
being requested of.
Stop
Nathan,
talking.
You literally
Sorry, Betty, right, can you mute him? Because he's just talking over me and not listening. So I'll try
Already done.
Yeah, good. So try and listen. If you're still talking into the muted mic line, fine. You are telling us what your experiment is. Now, I'm trying to establish if you know what an experiment actually is before you tell us what your experiment is, which we've already heard and ripped to shreds. Now, I'm asking you directly to answer us with an actual answer. What are the 3 constituent parts to every single experiment without exception? If you know what an experiment is enough to formulate an experiment, in this example, you will know these 3 things. Do you want to take him off mute?
If you would like to answer my questions first, I will answer your questions after that.
No. Either you're a pretender clown and don't know what an experiment is, or you can give me the answer to this question. What are the 3 constituent parts of an experiment? Go.
Would you like to answer my question I asked first?
No, I'd like you, the guy pretending to know what an experiment is, to tell us what the 3 constituent parts are, to show us that you do actually know what an experiment is. You could have Googled it by now.
I could have Googled it by now, but I asked you a question that you refused to answer and you talked over me. I don't think that's fair.
I've answered your question about your formal logical fallacy and your begging the question fallacy. I've answered you. We went into begging the question and explained that you are ultimately talking nonsense and don't know what an experiment is, because as you tried to formulate a hypothesis, you didn't have an if and then statement. You presupposed gravity, and then you talked over us when we tried to point it out to you. Now we're just trying to demonstrate to the audience that you absolutely, in no uncertain terms, do not know what an experiment actually is, because you've just obfuscated my question rather than answering it. Do you know what an experiment is?
I asked a pretty simple question.
What's an experiment? What are the 3 constituent parts in every experiment ever?
Come on, prove your science skills. Come on.
Right, that's a long enough pause for me to...
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Am I on mute?
No. Come on.
Hey, Nathan, I have a question. What's diffraction?
Interference.
That's not an answer.
Let me answer. Interference. What are the 3 constituent parts of an experiment?
Nathan, what's diffraction?
I said it. Yeah. I say it again. Interference. Now you tell me what the 3 constituent parts of an experiment are.
He didn't know the question and was embarrassed.
Yep.
Sorry, I've answered. Now can you answer me, please?
Nathan, he's gone.
He's
he dropped?
Yeah, I dropped.
Oh. What a coward.
You scared him off.
Well, it's fine. That
so
long,
difficult.
Protracted pause, whether
you
it was
can
because
claim
it was
science, but to actually back it up, it's so difficult.
Yeah, very.
Go ahead, Nathan. You were saying something I didn't hear you.
I just wanted to expose that he didn't actually know what an experiment actually is. He's quite happy to tell us about an experiment after we've pulled it apart for not having an independent variable. That's the thing he's trying to prove is the cause. In this case, gravity. He's actually moving something further away. That's his independent variable. It's not gravity. He doesn't have a proof of gravity. There is no science for gravity. No one will come on here and prove scientific evidence of gravity. There isn't any. Simple as that. You know, he failed
Yep.
as soon as he chose Newtonian because it's not the current rhetoric. We're currently in the Einsteinian age of bullshit gravity rather than the Cavendish age of gravity. Nevertheless, it was a complete total fail, but, you know, ultimately speaking, these pretender clowns will always come and claim they have an experiment. It's a magic word used by pretender clowns. Same as hypothesis. You know, even though he hasn't formulated a hypothesis and probably doesn't know what that is either, he's happy to use that magic word. And these are pseudoscience pretender clowns that invoke these magic words. Now, it's offensive to me personally because these words have a real meaning, and their real meaning has real use. So to invoke magic on these actual words is a hijacking, like all of the heliocentric model in most of what they do and most of how we've been deceived. It's a hijacking of something. And in this case, science is real. Science does prove cause. It's a very, very useful thing that's aided us vastly. Humanity has been benefited vastly, hugely, massively by science. So when people invoke science and they haven't got the slightest clue what they're talking about, we end up with what we have for a world, a nonsense world made up of dividing zero to get infinite amounts of stuff to tell us about an infinitely never-ending, expanding nothing, expanding into a nothing. It makes absolutely bloody no sense. Why? Well, because of people like that dick that just came on. Pseudoscience pretender clowns with magic words that they've nicked from real things like science. There you go, that's my rant over.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we haven't gotten any questions on the actual topics that were brought up. Why are we getting questions outside of it all the time?
Yeah, that happened last week.
I don't understand that.
Is there anyone else new in the Discord server? If not, we'll have some closing remarks and then we'll close out this Ballbusters.
Yeah, I see that Chocolate Zayn is here.
Hey, Chocolate.
Is he in the Discord server?
Yeah, he's in here. But I have taken him off mute, but he muted himself, so...
Well, we'll hang around. I'm happy to chat anyway. We're going to be chatting in the after show.
He's there. He's there.
Picking up.
Hey, Chocolate.
Hey.
You typically have on-topic questions. Hopefully you've got something for us in regards to the Big Bang. We shall see.
No, I just actually got here late to the show. But I thought I'd pop in the Discord, see what's up.
Have you ever thought about the Big Bang in any way, shape or form, Chocolate Zayn?
Big Bang? What's that? I don't know what that.
Well, that's something we didn't cover. I mean, I don't know if that was intentional, John. We never covered the ontological primitives in this regard.
Hey, I'm sorry. I had to step away for a second, man. Go ahead. Ask the question again.
It's all right. Up until that very moment, we hadn't actually called on your name at all. So there we go. Take that as you will.
Too funny. I heard ontological primitives.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't cover them in this presentation.
No, we didn't have to. I figured we went over them plenty in the last presentation. This is the second half of the ontological primitive, so there's two of them. There's only two possible choices as to how we in the universe are here. The first choice is nature or unguided or intelligent design guided. Those are the only two choices. There is no third choice. So we were concentrating on number one, the nature part, and what the answers that the atheistic scientific community had for that. And it's the Big Bang, right? There's nothing else other than the Big Bang. We went down some other trails associated with it, but that was it. Yep.
Even their own narrative points towards creation.
Are you talking about the Big Bang narrative?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the universe had a beginning. That's not the question. See, the first question that must be answered before you invoke the causes of that, correct? So the first question is, did the universe have a beginning? Well, yeah. First and second laws of thermodynamics state that there must have been an absolute beginning. It's that easy. It's too easy. So once you establish that there's a beginning, then the two ontological primitives are invoked.
But that conclusion is based on physical laws, right?
Yeah, the universe had a beginning? Yes, it's based on the first and second law of thermodynamics. And also quantum mechanics, but we don't want to go down that road. We'll just go with the first and second laws of thermodynamics.
Sure, but they just answer it with the dividing everything by zero and coming up with infinite. You know, the actual beginning is a complete sham. And then
there's no. It's a story, right? Because the Big Bang isn't a scientific theory. No one was there, you know, in their dreamland. What is it this week? 13.8 billion years. I mean, right there it tells you that there's no science in this. I mean, give me a Big Bang hypothesis.
Yeah, you're never going to get one. But
you can't manipulate the independent variable. So
well, you can't get to a dependent variable. The first step of the scientific method is observe a natural phenomena. That's your dependent variable.
Got a time machine handy.
Yeah, no one's observed that, right? They conjured it. So, and then they go off on the singularities, which is absolutely preposterous.
But is there,
right? Where'd you get that?
Is there narrative from the point that Arwen, you know, admittedly at the beginning when he had a bit less alcohol in his blood, threw a spanner in the works and said, "Oh well, mathematically fine, you know, they get everything from nothing." But thereafter, does it follow? Is it just increasing entropy from there on in? Once their actual explanation beyond the bullshit of getting everything from nothing starts.
Well, see, they're stuck. Because if entropy always increases in nature, it only goes one way. It's irreversible. Then you have to go all the way back, and it would have to be at its lowest entropy point. Well, how did it get there? So in the laws of thermodynamics, just looking at that in a vacuum, no pun intended, you're still screwed. Just like Paul Davies told you before.
Isn't there part of Einsteinian nonsense about like the big crunch, the time running backwards?
Oh! I have some alternative hypotheses or theories about that.
No,
you don't.
Not alternatives.
Yeah, I do.
I just want to know if that's part of the current narrative that will reach a point where it starts to contract, basically.
But I have a theory about that. I have a theory about that.
I don't want to hear your theory, Arwen. I'm sorry.
No.
This isn't the time and place, mate.
It really is. It really, really is.
How long will it last?
About 1 or 2 minutes.
You've got 60 seconds. Go.
Okay. Right. So, if the space within which the universe is present, all of it, is looping, then perhaps if everything would be expanding, because of the loop, it will eventually all return back to like a critical point. It will, because of the loop, it will all return to the same point eventually, because it will always go in every direction. It eventually will return to the same point of origin, technically, if the space is confined and looping. So maybe that way the crunch will eventually come into being again.
Oh, you only took 45 seconds. I'd just like to say at this point that not all views expressed on this show are the views of Nathan Oakley, 1980.
I think I've heard his theory before, though. I've heard it described differently, but same thing with entropy. Entropy allows for every possible, like the combination of, you know, where everything's at, and of course it's going to grow more disordered. But I think what he's saying is that at one point, the random assortion of elements in the whole universe were all in one point. And I guess if you let enough time pass, eventually that'll happen again, is what Arwen is saying, I think.
So is that part of the current Einsteinian narrative that there'll be a contraction eventually? Am I right in that? Or is that just something
No, the contract, it's not actually a contraction in my conceptualization of a looping
you had your 45
universe.
seconds, not yours. in the current narrative.
Well, I have 5 more seconds.
No, it doesn't work like that. Naughty. Can I just get an answer? Have I just imagined that? I just don't want that left out there hanging in the live show.
I think that
I don't
was
want to.
one outcome.
I don't want
but
to
I think the
attribute.
one
I
that
don't want to attribute that to Einstein. One of the Big Bangs. I don't know which one. The K -1 or K0, K+1. One of them has the big crunch. I can tell you
Okay.
that.
Fine. I hadn't
I'd
just
have-
imagined it. It's just not Einsteinian. Fine. I'm glad we got that covered. Thank
So-
you so much.
I don't
Just
think it is. I
from
could be mistaken, but
certain
there you go.
big crunch would be everything coming back into itself.
Yeah, reaching the
Yeah, but I
singularity
think we
again,
agree on that,
Back to
basically.
that singularity.
Yeah.
Right. It all comes back together again.
What a
But that
load
would
of
be a
old
second
nonsense.
law of thermodynamics violation.
That was my point. Thank you. That's where I wanted to go with it. Exactly. That's a second law of thermodynamics violation also. But
Yeah,
it's
but
not part of the...
not if you presuppose gravity naturally, because if everything would, if it's in a looping confine, and it would be basically because of the natural motion, it would have like a momentum, and that momentum might be just enough to actually cause a critical gravity well to eventually cause the big crunch again.
Maybe that's part of the narrative. It's a shame it's not part of the current narrative.
Where's my NASA check?
It's about as valid as your side theory, Arwin. So I'm kind of disappointed in myself for bringing it up also. I'm as bad as you.
I think
want
they
my
agree on the
NASA
big
check.
freeze now.
Go on,
Because of
Kosho,
the
sorry.
expansion.
Oh, now there's a big freeze.
Big freeze, yeah, same thing. That's yeah, contracting.
No, the big freeze won't contract. It will
No, sorry,
expand
yeah,
faster than
sorry, my
gravity
bad. I stand
every-
corrected. That would be increasing entropy until it just becomes very, very cold and all the energy runs out.
So we got the Big Bang, the Big Freeze, the Big Crunch.
One of the questions, Kosho, on the show was about what's it expanding into?
Right, that's a question that nobody can answer, but to be honest, it might not need to have an answer. If all the matter is in here, like we are where the matter is, where space-time is and all that, then there's nothing to stop it from expanding. If that makes any sense. There's no walls, there's no matter, there's nothing. Everything is what's inside this space-time. So, but the truth is nobody knows that, so.
That sounds particularly ethereal and
Magical.
vague. Very
Magical.
conveniently vague and mysterious.
Yeah.
Another infinite
Well, we keep
regress
searching.
theory.
So wait, but currently the universe is supposedly expanding, right?
Is that you, Chocolate?
Which means what?
Yeah.
The bendy
Yeah.
space-time is allowing
Chocolate.
that to happen.
Ah, we've got
Is
the
that
radio.
chocolate?
We got the
Yes,
radio
it is.
chocolate. We got the radio chocolate.
Yes.
Oh man, this is excellent.
You guys are silly. Yes, you got the regular chocolate.
No
actually
background
was my
noise.
question.
Wow, I can't know how to act.
Sorry, we've completely hijacked your point by saying how smooth and dulcet you sound.
Thank you, I appreciate it. No, I mean, I was just asking. I mean, right now the current status is the universe is expanding, right?
Well, so they
So-
say.
Like, what happens when the big crunch happens? Because obviously the bending of space-time is allowing that to happen. So
It
at some
It depends on the
then-
nature of the confine of the universe. Isn't it? Is it infinitely large, or is
does
it
reach a
looping?
point when the bending stops and bends the other way, and then everything starts coming back together again?
This whole
Well, no,
bending.
it's expanding.
Go on, Kosho.
Okay,
But
go
goes
for it.
again,
faster
it
than
really
light.
depends on the nature of the confine of the universe.
It's a cool story.
Seriously, this is region you can delve into if you think about it. I know it's very tough. Looping, confine, spatiality. But
So I will round out. We will continue to talk to the Discord server in the after show, but just got another question for you, Kosho. So the whole dividing by zero and coming up with infinite. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I didn't catch that part. I was listening to you guys talk about it, but I couldn't grasp where that came from. Like what part of the theory that comes from? Is that from the I guess to decide whether it was flat or curved or Where exactly is that dividing by 0?
Well, 0 would be nothing, right?
Right.
And infinite would be, if you like, everything.
Okay,
Yeah?
I see what you're saying. You're talking about mass divided by the volume then.
Yeah, the volume being nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think of the density. Like they always talk about as infinite density, but I don't think of the density as 0, just because it's like a point. I just think of it as like it's sufficiently small. But I'm not an expert, so.
So you don't go on the bandwagon of the concept of a infinitely small point in space.
But hold on, you agreed with Arwin, so that logically, and I can completely relate, that's where you can take it from logically, can't you? Yeah, the infinitely small, but you know, it's a 0.0000001 volume, and it's got a huge amount of mass and energy in that tiny little space. Yeah, I can wrap my head around that. That I'm not worried about. That's where Arwin went. We've had that. But, you know, you've been very honest and said, yeah, that don't make any sense. Well, that's essentially the fundamental start of your religious belief in a heliocentric world. You appreciate that, right?
Well, like I said, it doesn't all. It all could be everything in one point, or one particle. I guess with one Planck distance, something like that. But like I said, I'm not an expert, so I don't want
to. It's good that I get to do it a third time, as it's the main point of the show. So yeah, like I just said, logically, yeah, I could do that too. But unfortunately and illogically, that's not where it begins. It begins with, quite literally, everything from 0, nothing. Mathematically being dividing by 0 and coming up with everything, which they teach you in pretty early on in your schooling, isn't possible.
Again, I'd have to look at the details of that one. I haven't seen exactly how they know it had to be 0 or infinite density or 0 volume. I know like a point would be technically 0 volume, but that's only technically, when actually there would be space there.
Yeah, 4 for 4. But I won't go over, and I'll stop holding you to your toes to the fire in that regard. But also the other side to that, you appreciate that's the start of your fundamentalist belief in a sphere Earth, though, right? That's the
kind
beginning.
of. I mean, that's the logical conclusion, or I guess you would say the beginning. But technically, they're looking at all the evidence of everything that leads back to that point. So just because they can't explain what happened at that point or before that point or anything like that, I think that the evidence that leads back to that point is somewhat sound.
No, you're confused. No, they do explain it.
But might that evidence be consistent of mostly the background radiation of the supposed universe and the redshift motion and the deductions-based conclusions on that?
You'll have to take it to the other end of the scale. Let's just stay here because I'm going to round out the show soon and then start the after show. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley. There will be an after show shortly. Yeah, I'd rather stay at the beginning. This is the fundamental beginning part, right? So I know you want to go back to the point where it's a little bit of something, but you can't get around the fact that you've got to have, and I'll say it again, everything from nothing.
I know that the evidence they have for that is not even that point. They have the microwave background radiation, but I think what the time periods we're talking about is purely based on like the physical principles and like mathematical constructs that would have made it possible to do that. I don't think that there's really evidence that, nobody was there, and I don't think that there's visual evidence that was happening.
Yes,
because it's still like a millisecond.
The mathematical construct is dividing by 0 and coming up with infinity. So I'll say it one more time. They have explained it. They do explain it. That is the explanation. It just doesn't make any sense and isn't logical.
Seems like a red herring explanation to me.
That could be their way of holding, they still will be looking for evidence to validate that.
Who are they?
That wouldn't be validated.
Who are they? This is your narrative, right?
Well, no, like I said, it makes perfectly good sense up to that point. But, of course, things still need to be figured out.
That point that point's the beginning, not up unto that point. I keep saying it. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to let this wordplay slide. No. This is ground zero, the start, the beginning of your spinning ball space monkey religion, and it starts with dividing by zero.
Well, I mean, that would make sense if that's how they didn't start from the beginning.
It would make sense. Sorry, you're contradicting yourself. A moment ago, it didn't make sense, and you couldn't make sense of it. Now it does make sense because it's the start of your religious belief. Isn't that interesting? Does make sense, you say. Divided by zero makes perfect sense. Explain it to me then.
Cope with me, but everything else leading to that. It'd be like if you were trying to figure out what you did today and you've lost all your memory and you retrace your steps. You retrace all your steps and everything made sense up until the very moment that you woke up or something like that. And you don't really realize how you got there where you fell asleep. But everything that leads backwards to that moment makes perfectly good sense, and the evidence fits.
Yeah, I've said this. Arwen started there. We keep going here, don't we, to that beginning point before where they divide by zero for the start of your spinning ball space monkey religion.
Like I said, nobody claims to have that answer. I know you guys said that someone does, but I don't think that anybody would say that they were 100% sure that that's exactly how it began. They write these things because they say it's very possible. The math agrees with it, but
let me say it. Let me just say it a fifth time. Let me just say it a fifth time. That math is as follows: divide by zero, get infinity. Shout out to Mia Kim for the super chat. There was actually another super chat that I'll shout out as I've just shouted out that one. Hopefully I can find my way to it through my tabs. Yeah, here we go. Been several super chats. James Mays, Deefa Nasser, and Daniel Field. Thank you very much, all of you, for the super chats. Really appreciate it. I will round out the live show very, very shortly. So yes, they do have maths for it. That's what we're covering.
Right, and in maths, infinity is technically a possibility. It's something you can deal with, that is defined even. But in the real physical world, infinity is not part of the equation, so to speak. So, yeah, infinitely small can't exist, can never have existed. Physically impossible. It's only mathematically possible.
I'm reading right now because I've never heard the way you guys said it. I've never heard that before with the infinities and the zeros. But I'm reading a book I have here, and it just describes the moments after the Big Bang, like the moments.
Yeah. We keep doing this, don't we? I don't want to hear about the moment after, right? So answer me this, Kosho. Was it all created, or did it all just come from nothing?
Like I said, that's another question that nobody would have the answer to.
Yeah, they do.
One thing's
you keep saying that. They do. Mathematically, I'll describe it for you. Divide by zero, get everything. Everything from nothing, essentially. They do. They explain it. That's the explanation. That's the mathematics.
I'm reading it here. I don't see anything about, something smaller than zero volume. I don't see anything as large as infinity, but
yeah, we'd agree. It's a nonsense, isn't it, Kosho? Everything.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
It's why would they? The singularity. It's based on the singularity. The Big Bang singularity or black hole singularities. They divide by zero. Zero volume.
I see something here that says
common knowledge.
Something larger. Well, I mean, it's not really, because I've never heard that before. It wouldn't have jive with me.
You never heard the idea that everything came from
something
nothing?
Larger than.
Sorry, Kosho, you're distancing yourself from this. You've never heard of the idea that everything came from nothing? Wow, that surprises me.
No, I've heard people say that, and I've corrected them.
Oh, right. Do you want to know the maths for it? Why is this?
Stop teasing him.
Why is this struggling to process?
Yeah, I'm reading it right now, and this doesn't say it.
I'm gonna get a hand. I'm gonna round the show out.
Well, probably because he regards this
people
as
to
one of
correct,
the
'cause
lesser
I've been hearing that
developed
for a long time.
foundations of his
So,
religious belief.
Better get on that.
Oh dear. Right, let's get a grip. Right, I'm going to say a huge thank you to all of the Discord panel, first of all. So thank you very much. We will continue to chat to you after the show's over. But does anybody in the Ballbusters panel want to add anything before I thank you all for doing this and round out and say goodbye to the live audience?
The Earth is flat.
Thank you. We'll go to Betty next.
I think you've crushed someone with your latter thing. Yeah, you didn't know that something came from nothing. Huh? It's just funny.
Well, only when it's shown to be nonsense, so they want to distance themselves from it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's fun.
Paula?
I think the Big Bang Theory has been well described as a fairy tale for adults. It's magic.
Last but not least, John. Thanks for the presentation. Great, by the way. Great subject.
Yeah, if you thought this was stupid, somebody hold Evolution's beer next week. Thanks.
Massive shout out to Tina Baker. And of course, a massive shout out to all of you in the live audience. If you are watching this on Nathan Oakley channel, however, stay tuned as there will be a Ballbusters after show to follow. Massive thanks to Arwin, Quantum Eraser, Betty and Paula for making this Ballbusters possible. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next Ballbusters.